Wait, Hello, and welcome to the Warp Shelf Podcast. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today, we're talking about anime. You got that right. Yep. It's anime time. Back off, weebs. It's time. No, I mean, weebs, come close, because we're gonna talk. No, we're actually gonna talk to the non-weebs. So actually, I'm right. Get the fuck out, weebs. We don't want to talk to you. We're gonna talk to you about starting to watch anime. Yeah. How do you kick off starting anime? And I'm sitting here with one of the men who started me on my anime journey. Like, I have several people who are like, throughout my life, have been like, "Hey, you should watch this anime," and I've been like, "Okay," and it goes Deshaun and it goes my old roommate Jake. They are the two people who have started me on my anime path.
Which is funny to think about, because when you and I had first met, I kind of had like a falling out with
yeah.
anime a bit, where I'm just like, oh no, I just need to take a long break. But eventually they got me back.
They put you back in.
Yeah.
And so that means that I'm sitting down with my anime daddy. No, we won't say that.
You can say anime dad.
Anime dad.
The extra DY is where it gets weird.
And but it's important because he's basically got me into a pretty big anime fan, and we're going to basically learn from the guru himself on how to get started on anime. And I will also talk about the anime that worked for me, the ones that really got me started, and then also, like, what's good out there.
There's a whole bunch to cover.
So basically, you could take this list as two things. You could take this as the start to any good anime life. You can finally get into it. You're stuck inside quarantine and you're like, "Oh man, what the fuck am I supposed to watch?" You could finish a whole show in one day, motherfucker. Do it.
Yeah,
you can.
That's the life.
Believe in yourself. Or you can take this list as a recommendation list for great anime, because we're gonna talk about today some anime that are in the hall of anime. Like there's a really creepy place called the Hall of Anime, and it would have these anime up there being like, the greatest of them all.
And normally you would be intimidated or excluded from that place, but we're going to give you a pass.
You're going to be let in today.
Yeah.
So where do we start?
I would say, to basics, how would you give a loose definition to what anime is? Because this is something that differs from person to person.
It's a lot from different people. I've heard always, and the way I like to categorize it is, it does not have to, for me, it does not have to be from Japan. A lot of people automatically are like, if it's Japanese, it's anime, end of story. Anything that's animated beyond that is not anime. To me, that's ridiculous. Anime is a style. And I don't mean style of drawing. I mean a style of producing a show and putting it out. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. If you produce it in basically a weekly format, 20 minutes long, animated show, that's an anime.
But that just sounds like an animated show. Frank.
Yeah, but that's I guess, yeah.
Yep, that's
the thing.
There lies the problem.
There lies the problem.
So my definition is a little more traditional. I think my idea is more if it's made initially for a specific Japanese audience, even if it's sort of like a more global thing. Like you have franchises like Pokemon and stuff like that that are kind of meant for everyone, but it's still produced specifically for that market primarily.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I think I lean more towards that, but I can be flexible depending on like certain shows. Like I don't mind when people call the Castlevania Netflix series an anime.
It's produced in the anime style.
Because it kind of might as well be, but it is produced over here primarily, and it's made primarily for this audience despite being based on a Japanese game franchise.
Yeah, it's true.
But because the connotation of anime tends to lean more in Japanese spectrum, I almost prefer to refer to it as an animated series in that case, because it kind of gives a little more credit to us.
Yeah.
Because as anime-like as Castlevania is, the way it's produced, and especially the way the animation is executed, especially like in season 3, feels more American than like Japanese.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's kind of like, that also goes to like the Avatar: The Last Airbender argument.
Yes.
Just like, hey man, we did that. Give us some credit.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is I feel like if you go with the definition of like, it's not anime unless it's from a place, you know, that's my problem with it, is that anime is an art form in and of itself. It is a genre, you know, like it is.
It's a genre. I've heard it's a genre. I've heard it's an aesthetic, but that doesn't really fit. I've heard
no,
it's
I don't
a
think
movement,
the aesthetic is too loose.
I've heard it's a movement, which I'm kind of half and half about.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It is tough
because it really only came about as sort of just a general way to sort of categorize it.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where you kind of know it when you see it.
Yeah,
but it's tough to try and broaden it too much, because
I mean, the real thing is that when we're talking cinema and TV, we're talking an art form that's not old. Like, cinema in general is barely over 100 years. You know, like, of course it's over 100 years, but like, it's like we're talking late 1800s. We're finally making films. You know, like, and then we have 50 years later we're making TV shows, and then we have like 20, 30 years later we have we always had cartoons, but like we start to see anime, you know, like, and I feel like that this, it's all very young mediums, and they are their own separate mediums, all under the umbrella of filmmaking, you know, sort of, you know, like, but that's the way I like to look at it, is that it doesn't have to be from Japan, because it is something that somebody else from Brazil can do just as well, and I would still be like, cool, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and especially productions now get so global and kind of involve hands that are just entirely outside of the island. I think of stuff like... To me, it would be like saying Blockbuster is an American thing, because a blockbuster is not an American thing, but it is it originated in Hollywood. Yeah, it is,
you know, like,
and it isn't. It's one of those things where like you're known for it here, and that just tends to be the thing with culture. It tends to take new shapes as it reaches other people, but it's sort of... Everyone's going to have their own definition for it, because it's so loose, and because there's always sort of a line between, like, you can't broaden it too much. It's like, whoa, it's anything that could be an animated show that's like 22 minutes long. It's like this. I'm just like, well, SpongeBob? Well, Batman the Animated Series?
Yeah, you got me there.
It's sort of a weird thing, but the interesting thing is a lot of the animation for Batman the Animated Series was outsourced to TMS, which is a Japanese animation studio.
Got him there.
So it's just like, it's a weird one. I try to, like, I'm more of a traditionalist with the definition, but I'm like flexible with it. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next bit.
How did we start? Like, what got us into it?
How did we start? I mean, so I was saying that you got me basically started, but I was... Let's get down to it. I was reading mangas of Fullmetal Alchemist. That's what really got me started. Is I loved comics as a kid, but then I found these tiny books at a comic book store, and I was like, what the fuck is these? And I started buying... there was one called Oni something, where they were a magic school. I don't fucking remember what it was, but it was obvious. Like, it was just my teenage brain being like, pretty girls in book.
Pretty girls in book.
In book. And then Fullmetal Alchemist, because it was badass. And I remember watching the original Fullmetal Alchemist show and not really jumping into it, not really going. It didn't really click with me. And then when I got to college, when I met you, we started watching a lot of different things. You started to try to get me to watch. But I feel like it was going back to Fullmetal Alchemist that really got me started.
I think the good one to bring up is because there's probably anime that you've seen that as a kid you probably didn't know was anime at the time.
True.
Like stuff like if you ever caught like old episodes of Speed Racer on like Cartoon Network or something, or even Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon.
Like Pokemon
I
tends
watched
to
a
be
lot
a
of
lot of
Pokemon
ones.
as
Just
a
like,
kid,
I
so.
just love Pokemon, but I just thought it was a cartoon.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's like, I watched a lot of Pokemon as a kid, like definitely one of my
and
favorite
that was
shows.
Definitely my first exposure before I like knew the term anime.
Yeah.
It was like between like Speed Racer, Pokemon, and like Ronin Warriors on Toonami.
Yeah.
I think I probably wouldn't have known like the term anime until I got into Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. And I think we can all thank Toonami. Thank you, Toonami.
Yeah.
Is that Toonami really... when I was young, I got the exposure to it. I was not a big Toonami head. I definitely watched some of it and was like cool, but I definitely was not jumping into series every day, coming home to watch DBZ.
I was that exact kid.
Yeah.
Just like, oh man, you don't understand, Frank. Nothing happened this episode. They stared at each other for 20 minutes, but they might punch each other today.
Maybe today.
Maybe today.
It's true, and that's the thing is, I think a lot of people can thank two people for getting them into anime nowadays. You can talk about Toonami, or you could talk about Netflix, which is just the amount of people they're reaching.
I
and
would
then
also add Adult
showing
Swim.
it. Yeah, Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Yes, is that they all have this wide-reaching net, and then they're not afraid to put anime in the schedule. Is basically it. Like Netflix really flexed. Like I think it started in 2018. Really was when they started being like, "Oh, we should produce some anime series. There's some people here who want this," and it's really taken off since. And now we are living in a world where they revived Neon Evangelion,
or not necessarily. Well, yeah, they sort of revive it in the sense that they it's been out of print for years. You can't watch it legally. They finally brought it back and produced their own dub for it.
Yeah, I feel like that's bringing it back. But it's kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of kids, newer kids, some Gen X's, they're gonna say Netflix when all us millennials will be like, "Don't you dare you better put some respect on Toonami's name. Better put some fucking respect."
You guys don't know the struggle. It's gotten to the point where we're so spoiled that we get something like Funimation with their simuldub gimmick.
Yep.
Where 9 times out of 10 you get the dub episode of a show the same day that it came out. In the same day it comes out in Japan, in sub. That's insane. Considering when I started watching Dragon Ball Z on Toonami as a kid, it was like 10 years behind. Like we didn't start localizing Dragon Ball Z until Japan had just started or was about to end GT. Like that's how far behind we were.
That's crazy. That's
insane. I was the kid who used to watch bootleg VHS tapes of sub movies and episodes that they took too long to get to. I was that kid. My cousin had the source because he was a bigger fan than me at the time. He was the guy who would import statues and posters and stuff back in a time when it was way harder.
Yeah, way harder to do. With the internet, I feel like it's opened up. I feel like it's. Anime crept in with the internet, and then it's really spread out. It's basically.
I do want to talk about the different formats. It's really just 3, mostly 2.
Okay.
So there's typical anime series. 9 times out of 10, they run for 22 to 25 minute episodes.
Yep.
The season or series length can vary depending on the type of series.
True.
But then there's also OVAs.
Okay.
OVA stands for original video animation. Those are made. Not always, but most of the time with the intention of going straight to video.
Okay.
So they weren't produced specifically for a broadcast on TV.
It's on demand, sort of.
So because of that format, they tend to be made by different studios sometimes. That's why an anime series may look a certain way, but then an OVA for that same series might look completely different because it's sort of marketing towards a different audience.
Interesting.
And then the other one is sort of ONA, which is original net animation. So any Netflix original series where it's specifically produced for streaming and not a TV broadcast, which is becoming more and more the norm now, is an ONA.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I would assume people...
It was a definition that came, I think, around the start of streaming, but now it's starting to become more irrelevant as the line starts to blur.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's
not one that comes up
it's
going
to just die out because, what's the difference anymore between putting it out anywhere and putting it out streaming?
It's a different thing for us, though, because we don't have, Japanese broadcast channels over here. So for us, if you're an anime fan, if you have like Funimation or Crunchyroll, as far as you know, it's only streaming. It's just like, well, that's the day the episode comes out and I just watch it there. But for there, it does broadcast on TV. Yeah. And then it goes up after.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's a different sort of thing.
Okay. I feel that.
And then the next thing to clarify is the big old elephant in the room, as far as purists and elitists are concerned, is filler and non-canon material.
Filler and non-canon material. We're not even going to talk dubs and subs before we go into...
No, I was going to do the subs and dubs after.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, just want to make sure.
Filler, as far as the general definition outside of anime, is usually just more or less fluff.
Yes.
Fluff that just sort of pads things out.
Which will happen in animes. It's in animes.
In the Japanese animes.
In the animes, it's going to happen because of the weekly format. They are trying to put it out so quick, and because sometimes the manga catches up. The show catches up to the manga, and then they have to extend.
You only get one for most big manga. They tend to be one chapter a week. Anime tends to adapt 2 to 3 chapters per episode. So with that differential, you will catch up eventually, unless you're just starting, unless the manga's done already and there's a bunch, and you have some you have some slack to catch up on that you don't need to worry about, which is honestly for the best.
But the adaptation scene of anime is so crazy. A manga comes out and it'll be snatched up to be an anime before it's even
that's
out,
the thing. It doesn't have that same disconnect that adaptations over here do.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, my favorite book got turned into a film. I hope it's not crap. It's sort of a different thing. The manga and the anime tend to be so tied together because they both promote each other.
Yeah. It's it's kind of like the way they're with Lego stuff, they're we're going to put out toys, at the same time as we put out this.
They're always linked, even if the anime starts to go in its own direction for whatever reason.
Yep, it's true.
But filler, as far as a definition in the anime scene, can mean fluff.
Yeah.
But it also sorts to lean more towards just anything that's not canon, as in part of the original continuity from the manga. If it ain't in the manga, it ain't canon, or they refer to it as filler. So if you get an entire side arc that was never in the manga at all, they'll usually refer to it as a filler arc, even if it's not fluff. Even if it has some genuine conflict and stuff it wants to do, and it
actually progresses the plot.
If it's not in the manga, it's filler.
That's wild. Because you gotta take, for me, you gotta take it as its own adaptation, you have to be okay, well, this is its own thing. You can't be and
it depends on the series. Some are worse than others. You get with Dragon Ball Z, you got Gohan's palling around with a robot. You actually never saw that episode because you watched Kai, but it's a good episode. Gohan, it's when Gohan's training with Piccolo. He gets stuck. He gets trapped in a cave, and he befriends a dying robot. It's really weird. It's really touching. It's actually one of the better filler episodes. Then there's the driving episode, but then you have whole arcs that, like the Garlic Jr. stuff. And you're just great. Nah, just skip right over that, dude.
And that's an interesting thing, is that sometimes they get to a point where it's not just a filler episode; it's a full arc that they kind of filled in. They're this will work to get us here. This will be fine.
Yeah, but then you have other stuff like Naruto that Naruto was a case where they covered the manga and they finished.
Yeah.
But they hadn't done Shippuden yet, which is the next series, the jump from DB to DBZ. And they decided to pad the rest of the original series out with 3 to 4 filler arcs. You're talking 60 to 70 something episodes of just bullshit.
Oh my god.
I only knew that at the time. I was just oh wow, the main story's over. And then I'm just wow, we're still doing this kind of fillery stuff. I haven't read the manga, but I know this ain't a part of it because it just feels off. Yeah. And then I'm oh wow, this just keeps on going. I'm just going to skip on over to Shippuden real quick. The dub's not there yet, but I guess I'm switching on, which is a good segue to sub versus dub.
Yes. So, okay, there's going to be, we could probably do a whole podcast on sub versus dub because it is such a big topic.
We could, but I feel like it'd only be 20 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
Something like that. It's good to
something like that. But basically, it comes down to your preferences. I do not feel like it is law. You do not have to watch a sub. You do not have to watch a dub. You don't have to watch anime. Fucking do whatever you want. This is a goddamn free country, goddamn it. And what I'm saying is that it's whatever works for your situation. And I feel like a lot of dub people will say this. They'll, at least I can look away from my TV for a second, you know, like, and that's what.
Well, how about you just sit down and give this production your undivided attention, Frank?
Because
how about you get off your phone for 2 seconds, you fucking millennial.
Jesus.
but
it
it varies from person to person. I, growing up, because I had like grown up with like Toonami and Adult Swim and stuff, kind of strictly watched dub for a long time.
Yeah.
And then it became just a matter of just being impatient.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, man, but I keep seeing all these cool clips of all this stuff and like this arc. I want to watch that, but I don't want to wait for the dub. I'm just going to switch this up and binge it. And that's what happened with like Naruto and Bleach back in the day. And there was a transition period, but eventually I got used to it.
Okay.
Now I'm at the point where I tend to pick and choose sub or dub. I'm the nerd who's just like, he's like, okay, what's this available in? Okay, there's a sub and a dub. Who licensed the dub?
Yeah.
What are the ADR directors? What's the cast? Because there are some companies.
Deshaun is sitting there vetting the entire thing, going, yeah, that dub's got this guy, that's pretty good.
Yep.
But it doesn't have this guy.
Like, the licensee tends to be a big one. Like, if it's Funimation, usually 9 times out of 10, they tend to have the best track record, so I'm usually more comfortable being like, yeah, I'll watch the dub for this. If it's other companies, I tend to, like, narrow my eyes. I'm just like, let me check the ADR director and the cast. If it's basically anything from Bang Zoom, I usually avoid it like the plague.
So,
because something about their voice direction is so off to me.
I feel like it comes down to what's going to be more. It's like sometimes people argue that the subs are more true to the original intent of the artist,
which
it can be very true in some series.
Is definitely more true in a case of like when anime first started being distributed over here, because the localization process would take a lot of liberties.
Yeah, and it's funny when you try to watch a dub and then you have the subs on also, and you literally can see the differences from what they're saying to what they're actually meaning, which I've done that before for series. I have to be like, okay, what was the artist trying to say compared to what was actually
and that tends to be like, I would say, the stigma thrown at dubs is because they take the liberties, and there's always that defense of is this a donut instead of sushi? You know, like you need to like follow the artist's original intention. But to be fair, guys, you're watching a translated subtitle. There's still going to be some disconnect, even if it is subtitled.
It's like
because there's always going to be something lost in translation unless you know the language.
Exactly, especially for something like Japanese to English, where there's so much in the way people are saying things in that language that is important, instead of in English where we have literal sentences like there, you know, like
there's like also honorifics and stuff like that, which tend not to be translated in dubs. I actually prefer that. I think when we use honorifics in dubs, it's really cringy. I'm looking at you.
Like
I'm looking at you, Persona games.
Yeah, like calling things Chan and San and stuff
Chan
like
and San and Sama and Dono. It's like, stop that.
Stop.
But it varies. But think about the amount of times that we've watched like something anime and you kind of just like raise an eyebrow. I'm just like, it's a Japanese thing. Don't worry about it. Because there's always going to be that like cultural differential.
Yeah, it's true. And I feel like that's really it, is that there's always going to be something lost in translation. So I might as well get it. I'm a dub guy. If it wasn't apparent, I'm a huge dub guy. Even when you tell me to watch the subs, I have been obstinate about it. I have watched plenty of shows.
I'm pretty
subs.
lenient about it, I would say, for the most part. I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm just like, just watch the dub if you want. There are very few exceptions where I'm just like, do not watch the dub.
Which is the one exception that you've been angry at me about is JoJo's
dub is so
Bizarre
bad.
Adventure. I tried to watch the sub and I thought it was good. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But then I watched the English dub and it had me like howling like a baby because it's bad. It's like really
so
bad, but in like a really funny way. And like oh my Jesus. Like,
or it could just be funny because when JoJo's just funny on its own as opposed to being funny because it's bad. That's actually Bang Zoom, ironically.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
They have every single time.
And yes, I can see because I've now watched JoJo first half of the season sub, first half of the season English. Actually, multiple times because I've watched it with several people, and absolutely the quality goes down with the dub, like no question. And it's almost strictly just a joke thing for me, just to be like to watch
it's bad
it
because like that the dub actually has really talented voice actors attached to it, but the direction is so bad.
It's so bad, and
it's actors who do not know how to do accents. Like Johnny Young Bosch, who's a great voice actor, trying to do an English accent feel like is hilarious.
JoJo's is a great example, also because the dub misses a lot of really great ways the Japanese actors are delivering their lines. Like, you didn't think it was me, Dio. You know, that really works in Japanese, and in English, it like comes across as so goofy, you know,
exactly.
Like, and you're like, okay, so, and you can tell just by the way he delivered it in Japanese, he understood what he was saying instead of the English guy being like, all right, let's do this scene, I guess, you know, like...
JoJo's was always going to be a tough one to translate, but we still could have done better than what we got. It's gotten better now from what I've heard. Like, by the time you get to, like, part 4,
okay,
it's, like, no longer done by Bang Zoom. It's more, like, outsourced by Funimation to other companies. And so, from what I hear, the dub is actually a lot more consistent now, but... I'm just kind of like, guys, it's too little too late. If you started in sub and got all the way to part 3, why the hell would you switch the dub for part 4? You might as well keep it consistent, especially since the entire thing is that it's a legacy story. So it passes down, so you'd want to keep that consistent.
Wild. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion because it people can like, you know, either or, and I'm not going to be mad at you for it, but personally, I do like to look down at my phone or something.
Like, you just want to watch dub, that's fine. I mean, the track record is so much better than it used to be now. That I'm usually pretty comfortable with you watching the dub and knowing that we're pretty much watching
the same thing
and having the same relative experience.
Exactly.
So when I do have those few exceptions, that's why I really pointed. It's just like, no, I'm usually pretty lenient. When I tell you not to watch the dub for this, I mean it. There is a reason. Trust me. Listen.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I think we can move on from some and dubs. Moving on to
favorite series. And then after that, it's just all recommendations. This is going to be really meaty.
So I mean, to pick a favorite series is always hard. It really is. It's one of those things that you're just like, oh, how do I pick a favorite movie? You know, like, you know, type of thing. But, you know, there is some that strike you more, you know, and especially with anime, there's ones that, and that's why I think anime is so powerful, is ones that can touch your heart in ways, you know, like I feel like anime likes to relish in that it is an art, is that it makes you feel things. And I feel like the great anime series are the ones that make you feel things or leave you fucked up for days thinking about them, you know, like, I forgot to mention earlier one of my favorite series and one of the series that got me started, because you got me back into Fullmetal Alchemist in college, but one of the big series that got me into anime was Death Note. I was a big Death Note fan because
Death Note is on here for the recommendations.
Death Note is a great recommendation for people who don't watch anime, because it's an anime that shows you how complex an anime can be. You know, like you go in being like, okay, you know, like what it's a weird premise, but then all of a sudden the like back and forth between Light and L is crazy.
It's a supernatural thriller procedural.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the interesting about it, especially if you think, because you might get the impression, because it's the most popular genre, that all anime is like battle shonen stuff like Dragon Ball Z or even stuff like Pokemon. It's in the same way that you might think that comics are just superhero stuff when it's not the case.
Exactly. So it's a great anime to start, because it's one of those ones that will help you realize how big the genre can be and how what it can do. And so that's one that I absolutely recommend to anybody starting out, other than my Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood people. Like that's
Fullmetal Alchemist is on here, and that's going to be
we'll get to that. One. We'll get to that, but that's definitely one of my ones. That's my all-time favorite series because it's just it was one of the ones I read as a kid, and then to see it translated well, and then to see Brotherhood just was. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
So my favorite series, I just lump it in as one big umbrella, is just the Dragon Ball franchise, and thankfully we did an entire episode about this. So if you want more details check out on that episode. You can just take a look back at that one.
Series wise, I think, and we were going to talk about this, and I know I'm bringing them up. But the series that has made me cry the most, the one that and guys, I'm not a big crier. I know I talk about crying a lot on this show, but I'm not a big crier. I'm not afraid to cry, but I'm not like a guy who's constantly watching shit and being like, holy shit,
you're not Kevin Smith.
No, I'm not Kevin Smith. But My Hero Academia makes me cry like a little baby, and I'm not afraid to fucking say it. It is something about my love for superheroes, my love for anime, and generally my general outlook on life on helping anybody that I can. That that's one of those things that and they talk about that often. They talk about it often in the show that what would you do in a situation? What would you They bring it up all the time in the show. What it's almost in the second episode when what do you do when you see danger? Do you run towards it or away from it? And that's something that my whole life I have. It's been important to me to be able to be that guy who will run forward instead of back. And something about that show, something about Midoriya and Deku touches me on the inside, because I think about that also, and he's thinking about that. And it just, that show makes me cry. It's just I know it's a lot of monologuing. A lot of people complain that it's a lot of monologuing, but those monologues touch so deep, reach real things often.
Yeah, and it's kind of just a thing in that genre anyway.
Of monologuing.
If you think the monologuing in My Hero Academia is bad, I would not have you watch Naruto, which is far longer and far more melodramatic.
and that's the thing is, I usually this shonen will be very melodramatic, but that's what I feel about My Hero is it doesn't feel melodramatic. When you're talking about something important, it usually is something important. Yeah. And it cuts to the core of their characters often. And I just love that show. So if I'm talking about a favorite show that's happening right now, I would absolutely say My Hero Academia is a great starting on point for anybody who's not into anime and they want to watch it.
Yeah, My Hero Academia is going to be for younger kids.
Their starting on point.
Their Dragon Ball, their Naruto for after. It's going to be that shonen for them growing up.
Yeah, I think so. And good. This is a great fucking show. This is a show that not only brings on the great battle animations, but cuts to me core.
It's got the heart.
That's
definitely the big one that I love that I'm been watching right now that I'm keeping up with.
Yeah.
Especially since part of the reason I had that sort of falling out with anime when I had first met you is because it was really just shonen fatigue.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of unhappy with the state of the shonen genre because I'd gotten both burnt out on Naruto and Bleach.
Yeah.
And nothing really seemed to cut it for me. I'd watched Fullmetal Alchemist 03 at the time. Brotherhood didn't exist yet, and I really loved that. And it's just why can't more stuff be on the same line as this? And nothing really showed up for a good while until maybe Hunter x Hunter.
Which I have not seen.
And then My Hero came out, and it sort of brought new life to it.
Yeah. I love that show so much, and it's one of those things that it's hard to explain why it makes me cry so much, but it's like almost every episode I watch, I'm like, don't you fucking cry again. like, don't you?
Yeah, that's why I knew you were going to love it. That's why I kept pushing for it when you were just like, I mean, I saw like the first 2 episodes, but you know, it ain't no One Punch Man. I'm like, shut up, Frank. You don't know what you're talking about. Just keep watching. Keep watching. You're going to eat your words after the season.
And that's how it feels with both conversations with me and Deshaun talking about anime. I'm like, it doesn't seem like this bullshit anime. And Deshaun's like, shut the fuck up.
All right, let's go into like recommendations like per genre.
Okay.
This can broaden out because
But you didn't say, so you're just going to say blank like Dragon Ball Z and My Hero for your favorite?
Dragon Ball for like overall. If I have to do like my top 3 just period.
Yeah, just do it.
It's Dragon Ball as a franchise.
Cool.
Cowboy Bebop.
Yep.
And Mushi-Shi.
All right.
Like we'll get into more Mushi-Shi later because I actually have it in the genre for like Supernatural.
Cool. All right. And I'm gonna kick myself for like other animes that I'm forgetting. Like I really am. Like I'm gonna kick myself. I am a sucker for fan service anime that's done tastefully, sort of. Not too tastefully. Not too tastefully. Let's be serious here. It's anime.
Sprinkle a little trash.
Just a tiny bit.
A little cheesecake. Just a little bit.
A little salami will be good for Ken. But I am a big fan of, and I own most of the books at the moment, is How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk, I feel like it was going to come up a little bit, but you were talking about shonen fatigue. We are living in the era of isekai fatigue, where every other show is an isekai. Like, I literally watch The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, which is an isekai, but it's cute, it's different, you know, like, it's trying to be...
Just to clarify, because we are, like, talking to people who might not be into the medium yet.
Yes.
And isekai, at least in its broadest definition, tends to have a video game gimmick, but not always.
Not always.
It's usually as short as it can be transported to a fantasy world. Yes. Usually.
Yes. So, I don't think we defined shonen earlier, but shonen is just fight anime.
Shonen is fantasy anime marketed at young boys. Shonen literally translates like little boy. So it's a genre marketed at like Japanese like preteens, so like early teenagers. It's usually dominated by like battle manga like Dragon Ball, Naruto, and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily usually it doesn't have to always be in that subgenre. Like Fullmetal Alchemist is technically a shonen.
Yeah. But
it wouldn't really fall into that same thing. That's more like fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. But definitely one of my, like, okay, so I The Time I Reincarnated as Slime is not one of my favorite series. I'm just saying it was fun to watch. But definitely one of my favorites is How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. I don't know why that show makes me laugh. Mm-hmm. I love the characters, and for some reason I own the manga. I don't own many manga series. I just don't have the room, you know? Like
that's kind of my thing.
I really like manga. I love reading it, but I don't have the room to own it, you know? Like I used to just take it from the library constantly, you know? Like just
You should think about getting a Shonen Jump subscription. And this isn't like an advertisement. Not that I wouldn't take their money, but the Shonen Jump subscription is super cheap. It's like a couple bucks a month.
Really?
And you get access to like most of like the new stuff. Yeah.
It might be a good idea in this quarantine.
That's like a huge library, so it might be the way to go. I'm generally an anime watcher anyway. Yeah. Because I already have enough of a time like dealing with adaptations of like comics and other stuff that I like, and like picking it apart and talking about the differences. With anime, 9 times out of 10, I like to just be surprised by the show.
True.
Like in my Discord group, like we don't allow anyone to watch or to read the My Hero manga. It's
really?
Just like, we're not having any manga elitists who are way ahead of us being like, oh man, wait till you get to this moment. Just like, shut up.
Fair enough. That seems like a great rule. Like,
yeah. And everyone's following it. I mean, all of us are watching My Hero in dub, too, which is nice. There's, like, literally one person who watches it sub, and we make fun of him constantly. Just, like, join us. It's fine over here. It's hilarious because his favorite English voice actor is in My Hero as Tokoyami, the bird character, which is, like, a fan-favorite character. I'm just like, come on, support your boy.
Support your boy.
Support your boy.
Support your boy.
But as far as going into, like, genres, I have it, like, alphabetical, I think, for the most part, but I was like jumping around on this a lot. This one is like absurdist / surreal,
which it's funnily enough a genre in anime.
yeah.
You know, like it's definitely like whole anime is just based around, hey, this shit's about to be fucking weird. You ready for this fucking weird ass shit? Like, and you're like, wait, what? Like, and I feel like the king of that, and for most people, will be their introduction to this series is Fooly Cooly.
Fooly Cooly's a big one. That was a huge hit on Adult Swim.
Yeah, and I didn't watch it. Of course, I didn't watch it at the time on Adult Swim. I watched it years later on Funimation. I really dig Fooly Cooly.
Weird one.
Like,
it's
it is weird.
It's hard to describe. I would just do this as like a pitch. It's sort of about a kid who has like a portal in his forehead that like robots come out of.
Yeah.
So
if somebody pitched the show to me as that, I would have watched it immediately. The person who pitched it to me went, "It's fucking weird," and I was just like, "So wait, what's it about?" They're like, "It's fucking weird,"
which
and I'm
is
just like, "Okay."
It's not inaccurate, but what does that tell you about
Yeah,
it? That's
right.
not exactly going to like.
Somebody just kept being like, she pulls a guitar out and hits people with it. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Like,
yeah. So I think that's just a better pitch. Just like, a kid grows robots out of his head.
Yes.
It's wild.
It's wild.
As far as, I also have like a separate section for each of these as to what language I recommend them in.
Okay.
For Fooly Cooly, I would say strictly the dub.
Yeah, it's a great dub.
Like, honestly, the dub is what made that show. The reason Fooly Cooly got a second and third season is because of how popular it got on Adult Swim.
Really?
To the point where Adult Swim co-produced the second season.
Yeah. And I really, it's one of those
Which,
shows.
you want to talk about the weird differential between American and Japanese for anime. That's a weird blurry
That's a weird one. That's a weird blur. I feel like it's one of those shows that, and I don't often bring this up on the podcast, but it's definitely one of those shows that I just got really high before every time and was just like, damn. I was just like, damn, this is weird. Like, and that's definitely one of these shows that you should do that with. You know, like,
I imagine it's one of those series where like the drugs are like a drop in the bucket compared to what you're actually watching.
You're just like, all right, sure, whatever.
Like, he's just like, that's the goal. I'm trying to get there. How can I reach there?
Exactly.
What did they take before they made this? It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
The next one is the Tatami Galaxy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
I don't think I have.
This is from the same director as Devilman Crybaby. I would
Really?
actually argue this might be. I think.
I didn't bring up Devilman Crybaby when I said favorite series, and I absolutely head over heels love Devilman Crybaby on Netflix.
I like Devilman Crybaby.
Really?
I don't love it.
Oh man, when that show ended, I think there was just 3 days afterward where it was like you could have time lapsed. I was just sitting there with my hand on my chin, just like looking out, thinking about it. Like you could have time lapsed, and all the world would fucking die behind me, and I would still be there, like sitting there.
I think it's gorgeous, and it's gorgeous, and it has a lot of interesting ideas. It's kind of messy.
Yes,
and as far as
I kind of love the mess, so that was kind of the point.
And stacking it up against like Masaki Yuasa's other shows, I don't think it's his best work. I think it might be up there.
Okay,
but stuff like the Tatami Galaxy, I would actually say is better.
Really?
Tatami Galaxy is a weird one. It's a time loop show.
Okay.
About a high school student who wants like the ideal high school perfect life, and basically just goes in to like different versions of what that would be based on his choices. Like, what if I joined this club? It's like, well, that didn't work. What if I tried this? It's just him trying to like play God with his own life. And the entire point is just like, you don't get that sort of control. Yeah. Spontaneity and chances and risks and hardship is what makes life.
Yeah. That's
so it's
cool.
Really funny.
All right. I mean,
that's an odd one. It's only available in sub. As far as watching it legally, it's on Funimation.
Okay, cool.
I will warn you, it's very fast. Like, part of the joke is that everyone speaks like rapid fire. So it's one of those things where you really have to like sit down and like read those subtitles fast because they're
whipping.
Yeah, they're speaking a mile a minute.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's really funny.
All right.
So the next genre is Battle Shonen.
Battle Shonen.
So we already talked about a couple of these. My Hero was one of them.
Yes. Which the battles in My Hero are top notch.
What I love about My Hero is that unofficially, and this is sort of a theory, because you have the thing with Deku where let's actually just talk about the premise.
Yeah.
So it's about a boy who starts out quirkless, meaning he doesn't have a superpower in a world where superheroes are the norm and superpowers are the norm. It's kind of like X-Men, just on a much wider scale.
Yep.
And he is one of the few in the population that's born without one, until he's actually earned and gifted one by the world's greatest superhero at the time, All Might, which is basically their Superman.
Yeah.
At that point, and his power is one that he can actually pass down and has been passed down through generation and generation. And the series has hinted that there might be more powers for Deku beyond just the super strength. I'm thinking the whole idea is that the mangaka just wants to do like a secret Superman origin. I'm thinking he might get more like Superman style powers.
That's wild.
Because it'd be cool to make like, what if I did a Superman story, but you have to earn every single one of those powers?
Yeah,
and
maybe.
it is a process.
Yeah, it's possible.
That's a theory.
The show surprises me often because it really could be a very straightforward origin story. Like, because it implies that it's an origin story, but that's the story, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and it's a much better version of a premise that's been done before and done poorly. Like, when you watch a movie, like, have you ever seen Sky High?
Yes, I've seen Sky High.
Exactly. It's one of those things where, like, you see that movie and you're just like, this movie's dumb, but the premise of a superhero school is so cool. Why can't it just be done better? And then we got that.
Yes, exactly. That's a weird pitch, though. Don't think of My Hero as Sky High, but good. Like,
it's just Sky High as an example of like that premise done poorly.
Yes.
And then we already talked about Dragon Ball, and you can like watch the episode for that.
Yeah, listen to the episode.
The other one is they're actually both these two are actually both by the same author. It's Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yes, which I have only seen the first season of Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, because you like what it was like on Amazon or iTunes or something
for free the first season, and I watched it because I didn't have anything else at the time, and I was kind of like, okay, and now I just haven't jumped back in.
Oh, it's such a good series,
and it really is great. I was really blown away by the first season.
I feel like it's one of those overlooked shonen that definitely was overshadowed by bigger names, like especially Dragon Ball for the time. But what I love about the anime is that one, the pacing is impeccable. It doesn't drag itself. It doesn't drag its feet like Dragon Ball does. It consistently adapted 2 to 3 chapters of the manga from beginning to end with no non-canon filler stuff at all. And it's just like, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
So the pacing is just great. And it's like just a bit more mature.
Yeah.
Than a lot of shonen tend to be, and plus it just has a more interesting concept, like the spirit detective stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that the series opens with the main character dying.
Yeah, it really is, and that could be kind of a cliche now with the isekai world going on, where you die, you go
but at
over.
the time it had come out, it hadn't become so tired.
Yeah, and I really do. It's one of those shows that you could see the influence it has on other shows, you know, like Yu Yu Hakusho touched so many other shows, and it's worth watching strictly because of that.
As far as language is concerned, I would recommend either sub or dub. I grew up with the dub. The dub marks an interesting point for Funimation because it was their real first attempt to try and be more accurate to the Japanese script as they could, as opposed to the Dragon Ball Z mentality, which was just like, let's just do what Pokemon did and just Americanize the hell out of it because we got to market to the kids over here.
Yeah, here, have hamburger.
Whereas like Justin Cook, who also voices Yusuke and was like a big proponent of that series' localization, is just like, was a fan of the show. So they're just like, no, we're making the dub accurate.
I think Yu Yu Hakusho is one of those Hakusho is a classic. It's like when people talk about great animes to watch, this is one of those ones that's always brought up.
It's I think because the pacing is so good and because it deals with a little more dramatic stuff, and it's not as superficial as sometimes Dragon Ball can get, as much as I love it. It's probably
or Bleach or
Naruto thinks it's deep, but it's not.
Yes,
it's one of the
which you just like somebody listening who was just like, Naruto's so deep.
I used to be big into Naruto. I fell out of it. I got sick of the melodrama bullshit.
I strictly do not watch Naruto, One Piece. Like I'm not watching your long ass show that sucks. Like I'm just not going to do it. I know discrimination, but I know it's a long-ass show, and then there's parts of it that are going to suck, and I'm just not going to do that to myself.
It sucks it sucks to try and recommend people the show and then be like, here's a guide so you know when to skip all the filler arcs.
Yeah, you're like, wait, hold on.
But
and I've been told by everybody to watch One Piece. Like, I get it. It's cool. It has multiple superhero powers.
I think what I will do with One Piece is I will not watch the anime because the anime is ridiculously padded. It literally adapts like a chapter per episode, and it's ridiculous. What I probably will do when I know when I know it's ending is I will probably just binge read the manga.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair enough.
Maybe. That's about as far as I'll go. Maybe. That's a maybe.
It's a maybe.
In like 15 years when it finally decides to end. But Yu Yu Hakusho, because of its quality and pacing, tends to be the only shonen I think I can rewatch over and over, and I have.
Ah, cool. 4 seasons.
Yep.
Yep.
Next one is comedy. Now, this can be broad, so I kind of divvied it up.
True. Before we move away from action, though, would you count Afro Samurai as an anime? Is a big
Afro Samurai is definitely an anime.
Okay, because I would say Afro Samurai is definitely one of my top favorite like battle animes of all time. Like, it is just, I love the animation. The voice acting of Samuel L. Jackson is fucking amazing, and it's just so epic, like the way they like build up to the battle. Like, it's very classic like video game structure, but it's fun.
Yeah, that one was a big proponent of sort of like broadening the horizon as far as anime aesthetic is concerned, because it's still very Japanese, but it has sort of that like Afrocentric flavor to it, which
the
is
Wu-Tang
really dope.
clan feel, like I love that. And I love that anime. Like, I own it's the only anime I own on Blu-ray and DVD. Like,
I have a few. I don't own as much as you would think. It's mostly stuff I know I will rewatch. So I own most of like Dragon Ball, and like Yu Yu Hakusho is actually one. I have the first season of My Hero Academia, but anime Blu-rays are really expensive. I usually wait for a sale. That's why I haven't gotten season 2 yet.
Yes, and that's basically it. Is I waited until Afro Samurai was on sale.
But moving on to comedy, I would say a big one that got a lot of people into anime was One Punch Man when that first started.
Yes, I know a bunch of people who do not watch anime who watch One Punch Man. Like, they definitely. It's one of those ones that people don't. They don't, it sounds bad, but they don't realize they're watching anime. Like, that's the reason why they love it, is they're like, an animated show, and then they're watching it and they're like, cool. Like, it's funny.
This one it's basically a superhero satire.
Yes. And that's where, if you're listening to this show, you probably are a big superhero fan. You will like this show. It's funny, like, it's able to parody.
It's sort of the Superman thing for people who don't know enough about Superman. It's just like, he's so overpowered. He, like, nothing is a challenge for him. It's like that conception brought to life as like a character who literally defeats almost every villain he encounters with one punch, and he's just become super bored and apathetic because of it, because he just wants a goddamn challenge. And it's funny. There is a caveat.
Yes, there is a huge caveat. Season 1 is all you watch.
Season 1 was done by Madhouse and an incredible animation team who have since moved on to other stuff. Season 2 was outsourced to a different company. It's JC Staff, which isn't a bad company on its own, but they tend to work better for like romantic stuff. Like, they shouldn't be in like the action game.
Okay.
And Season 2 suffers because of it. The dip in quality
is astounding.
Yes,
it's like
astounding.
we didn't talk about Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Super because we've already talked about animation like downgrade in the Dragon Ball episode, but it's strictly happening here in One Punch Man. One Punch Man Season 1 is a testament to anime battle scenes. Like, it is an amazing show to watch just for the animation. And then Season 2 feels like they had a tiny budget and they were trying to use as much as they could, and it just shows.
Yeah, less budget and more just scheduling. That tends to be the problem. It's usually pre-production issues or a staff that's not fully equipped to really handle a show like this tends to be the issue more so than budget. Budget is more just a shorthand word.
Yes, exactly.
moving on, I want to throw this in. This wasn't initially on the list, but it is from the same creators. One Punch Man is Mob Psycho 100.
I hear it's great.
This wouldn't really fall into shonen, so I didn't really want to put it there, nor is it really traditional fantasy, so I think I'll just talk about it here. Mob Psycho 100 is great. It's starting, especially after season 2, is starting to become like one of those modern classics.
Yeah.
It's better than One Punch Man. It was at the start, because as much as I like One Punch Man, it's, as I've heard you say sometimes before, all thrill and no fill.
Yes.
And that's it. Like, it's pretty to look at, and it's really funny, but Mob Psycho 100 is about something.
About something?
So it's about, it's interesting because they do have parallels. They're both about overpowered characters.
Yes.
The main character, Mob, of Mob Psycho 100 is sort of like this shy, antisocial boy who underneath it all has like these amazing psychic abilities.
Okay.
And it's differentiated by a percentage. So when he goes to 100%, that's when all hell breaks loose. So it's about him trying to conform to life, learning how to make friends and love people, because he's just sort of blank all the time because he has to hold himself back. And it's really funny. It's really good. The animation's incredible. It's amazing how Bones was able to translate the style of the Mob Psycho 100 manga, because one, as a manga creator, isn't that good an artist.
Yeah.
Like, he gets by on like amazing premises and his sense of like comedic timing.
Yeah.
So there's a reason like One Punch Man started off as a webcomic.
Yes.
And then it was turned into an official manga once he outsourced to like a professional artist to translate it for him. Mob Psycho strictly stays in that like sort of rougher style, but Bones was able to actually translate that well into anime as like an adaptation.
Yeah.
They like played to its strengths.
I definitely want to watch it. I want to bring up, and I think it falls into more comedy than action, the anime that got me really into watching anime on a regular basis. Like, I would call myself an anime fan after you and me started watching anime and stuff like that back in college. But the anime that got me being like, I'm subscribing for Funimation, I'm watching more anime all the time, is Kill la Kill. Mm-hmm. And Kill la Kill, it's not exactly a shonen anime, but it's definitely a battle anime.
Yeah, definitely.
But reason why I bring it up in comedy is because it really strictly wants to be funny, you know? Like, it's like, as much as it gets dramatic towards the end and big, it is a funny anime.
It definitely is a Trigger show.
It's definitely and Trigger's, for people who don't know anime, it's an important studio because they bomb. They are great.
They tend to make ridiculous stuff. They're the same studio behind Gurren Lagann.
Yes.
And they did Kill la Kill. They have like that anime movie that kind of lit the world on fire last year, which was, I think it was Premiere.
Yes.
Was the way it was pronounced.
Yes.
Like, they're all about, it's crazy. They also did Darling in the Franxx as a co-production with another company.
And they did the Witch Academy one.
Little Witch Academia?
Yeah, they did that.
That was them.
Yeah, it is them. Fight me. You could look it up, but I really love Kill la Kill because it was one of those things that I went to Anime Boston for the first time years and years ago, and it was as press, and it was one of those things that me and Deshaun were just like applying to any con nearby, and we were like, we're anime fans, we'll go to Anime Boston. And
that is them.
And nice. I got one, guys. I won naming something that Deshaun didn't. Oh yeah.
I'm not really that big a Trigger fan. Like,
I'm a big Trigger fan because Kill la Kill.
Sometimes, like, even I've been in the game a long time. Even Trigger for me sometimes just like, okay, guys, okay, relax. Would you guys? That's how I react to like every single Trigger show, every single one that comes out. Maybe not so much Little Witch Academia for what little I've seen of it, but cute. Something especially like Darling in the Franxx where I'm just like,
oh yes, they have the butt sex robots. Very good.
Like Jesus.
But Kill la Kill it's an interesting one to recommend to somebody, but it's one of those ones that is so wild and weird that you just have to kind of keep going, and it gets wilder and weirder.
The only Trigger show I think I've watched all the way through was Gridman.
Yeah, I love Gridman. Yeah. Gridman's great.
I liked it.
I liked it because, of course, I like giant robot fights. I'm a big Godzilla fan, so anything with giant robots, I'm like, oh yes, very good.
I'm in this weird spot, and we'll get to this because Mecha is a genre.
It is a genre zone, and I will gush about Mecha when we get to it.
I'm in this weird place where I usually don't care much about Mecha. I love giant monsters. Like, I love kaiju.
Yes.
But the moment the robots come in, I just don't.
Oh, I don't care. If it's big, I want it.
I usually don't care. I don't know what it is. Like, Mecha Godzilla is like a fan favorite.
Yeah.
I kind of just shrug at Mecha Godzilla. I'm more of a Ghidorah Biollante type guy. Yeah. I get the appeal. It's just like, but what if Godzilla but robot?
Well, for me, it's more about what if we were able to respond in kind to Godzilla, you know, like that's what.
But also, what if Godzilla robot?
But what if Godzilla giant robot? Yes, exactly. But to finish off what I'm saying about Kill la Kill, I went to an anime convention and I was being escorted by somebody, and I was like, hey, what anime would you say to somebody who wanted to start anime? And they were like, Kill la Kill, but don't like, you know, watch it, but like go in with a grain of salt, just like keep watching, you know, like, and I was like, okay. And I did. And I just remember being like, what the fuck am I watching for the first episode? And then I remember watching it all in 1 week and just being so happy by the end of it. I love that show. It's so hype is basically what, you know, is the whole fun of shonen in general is like, or any battle anime is you get really hype. You're like, oh shit, you know, and Kill la Kill does
stuff that has its own flavor and that you wouldn't necessarily see, at least not when I first started with like American entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And I absolutely that would be my recommendation for the comedy action thing would be Kill la Kill. Like, I love that one.
So the next one is an interesting one because I do not like the genre, is Isekai. This one is Konosuba. I love this series because it just spends
I haven't seen this yet.
It's a great series. It's only on Crunchyroll.
I've seen the memes.
Yeah. This one makes fun of the entire genre, which is why it's funny.
Really?
Everything is a twist and a subversion of like every single like trope that this genre tends to accompany. So typical things, just like a boy dies and he gets reborn in a video game like MMORPG world. But then the twist is he's not like some wide-eyed, doughy like protagonist. Yeah. He's actually kind of a pervy dick. And every single member of his party members is sort of a twist on like the archetype. Yeah. He has his like goddess healer character who should be like the tsundere character who grows to like love him, and she's the gentle one, his moral compass. No, she's actually sort of like a selfish bitch.
Sounds pretty good.
And then you have the mage character who typically has to be the overpowered one in the group. The stalwart maid who's really good at magic. The joke is she's only good at one spell and she can only use it once per day, and then she's useless. And then you have the valiant like knight character who will protect her friends at all costs and stand in the way and take all the damage for them. Yeah. She's actually a huge masochist and gets turned on by violence.
Oh, Jesus.
It's hilarious. It's so damn funny. It was recommended to me by my buddy Rob. He's the one who like follows us on like the podcast a bunch. He had recommended the show knowing I wasn't a big fan of the genre. He's just like, yeah, but you'll like this because it kind of just takes the piss out of everything. And I love it. There's 2 seasons of it and a movie, which just got put on Crunchyroll. Nice. I watched it with my buddies.
Nice.
So damn funny. As far as recommendations go, this one isn't one where I'm going to tell you not to watch the dub, but I will say I'm not too big a fan of it, but I'll live if you're going to watch it. Okay. My biggest point of contention with the dub is that the cast, for the most part, out of like the 4 leads, for 3 of them is pretty perfect. Cool. Like when they announced the cast, I'm like, great, perfect choice for each of them, except for the main character.
Oh, really?
I haven't heard the voice actor Arnie Pental and other stuff, but my problem with his version of the main character is that the entire point of the main character is that he's the exact opposite of like the typical like shonen or like isekai protag boy. He's like super sardonic and kind of like monotone and really manipulative. And in the dub, he just sounds like generic anime boy.
Okay.
And that's my big problem. Because it's like, the entire point is...
So, if we're going to talk isekai, I think somebody will be screaming from the background, but what about my favorite show, Sword Art Online? And I will tell you, you have bad taste, sir. No, I'm just kidding. We won't be like that, but you have bad taste, and you can leave my podcast. This isn't. Get out. No, I'm just kidding. I was one of those guys that started watching Sword Art Online because there was all those people who love Naruto and One Piece, and they tell you, wow, Sword Art Online's so much fun. And I watched the first season being like, hey, this is pretty cool. And then I got to season 2 and I was like, but why does he like his sister like that? And then I was like, no, make it stop. After everything after that, it has just been...
I had like never jumped on the bandwagon.
It is the classic isekai. It is like, you jump into game, you have epic power.
Yeah, because even before that, you had stuff like Dot Hack, but Sword Art Online was the one that started the trend of why we get an isekai show pretty much every season.
Yes.
And it's really annoying. But I had never jumped on the bandwagon just because everything I had heard of it didn't really appeal to me. Others like, oh yeah, fantasy swordplay and stuff.
Yeah.
But everything everyone my friends keep talking about sounds really dumb. Even before they started disliking it. Like, that sounds stupid. And then lo and behold, like a season or two later, just like, yeah, I dropped it. It's stupid.
It dropped it. It's stupid. And that's the thing is you will have tons and tons of people being like, hey, watch this show. Don't. Like, it will actually sour you on the genre. Mm-hmm. Like, on this, like, oh, he's in a video game. Because there is plenty of good ones where they're in a video game and they don't have to be like, but then I put a headset on and I'm in the video game. You know, like, you don't have to do that. Like, Sword Art Online is extremely on the nose all the time. And it's epic at certain points, but overall, it's not worth the entire price of admission. Just don't do it. There's better ones.
It's such a dead horse at this point.
Yes. And if you're, like I said earlier, if you're going to choose a video game one, I prefer the How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon approach, where they are in a video game but they don't act like they're in a video game, you know, like it's obvious video game aesthetics going on. Like they level up and they got stats and stuff, but no one says like, oh, I'm playing a game, or like everybody is that character. They're not like, oh yes, I'm this character, but also this character. You know, like,
there are definitely outliers. I've heard like between that and like Rising of Shield Hero.
I was gonna say, good. I hear that's pretty
good.
I
don't care.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I that's why I'm saying this now is do not make yourself not care by watching something like Sword Art Online. There's better versions of what the fuck is going on there.
Better versions of like that genre, just like for anything. But going back to comedy, this is the last one on here. This also could have been in Absurdist / Surreal, to be honest, but I think it leans more towards comedy, is Pop Team Epic.
Pop Team Epic, okay. I love Pop Team Epic. It's one of those anime that I will watch whenever, and it's hard because if somebody walks in, they're just going to be like, the fuck?
Yeah, I remember you put it on once when a bunch of people were over. I'm like, Frank, this is... there's a bunch of normies in here. This is not the anime to show them right now.
Exactly, it's not. But it is fucking funny. It is so... There's nothing that makes me laugh out loud more anime-wise than Pop Team Epic. Like, it is just so fucking good.
Oh, man. As far as language is concerned for that one, the dub is so slavish to the Japanese that it really doesn't matter. Thankfully, part of the reason for that is that they don't really have to deal with mouth flaps.
Yeah.
Much, so they pretty much did 1-to-1. I would say almost to the dub's detriment, because the show is so damn Japanese. It's just weird. It's almost one of those things where they might have been better off taking sort of a Sergeant Frog approach to actually give it a little bit of an American twist.
Okay.
For like jokes, because that's worked out before.
Yeah, it can.
But it's just one of those things with adaptations.
Yeah. It's hard with that because you want it to be just as weird as it normally is, and Americans have the sense to like make it makes sense,
Yeah.
and that's like not what it's trying to go for. But it is an anime show that I will recommend to anybody who gets into the genre. Absolutely, like Pop Team Epic.
It's
is
definitely
one of
not
those,
like a first, but once you've once you kind of know the genre a little better, it's a good one to jump into.
Yes.
Don't try to do it as like a first time comedy thing.
Definitely not,
because you will run away as far as you can and never come back.
So another favorite of mine before we leave this bit, and it falls into isekai a little bit, not really, but it's a fantasy one, and it falls into action, but and at the moment it falls into comedy. And you're gonna be like, Frank, what the fuck? Goblin Slayer is one of my favorite of those shows going on right now. And the reason why I say it falls into more comedy is the first episode is one of the darkest episodes I've ever seen of any anime ever. And then forever on, they're just like, but what about cute fantasy girls working with this dark character?
Yeah, that first episode like sprung a huge controversy, and I'm just sitting over here just like, some of you have never read Berserk, and it shows.
and yes, you should not watch Goblin Slayer in mixed company. Like, do not watch it. Like, they will be like, what the fuck are you watching? Mm-hmm. But it is a fantastic show. It's a better manga. If there's one thing on this list that I would say is a way better manga, it's Goblin Slayer, because Goblin Slayer's manga is less fillery than the show, but the show is fun and has a good time, and it is a great action anime, and it just feels like it's kind of like a dark Batman-like character, you know, like where he's got this one mission and he's got to do the mission of killing fucking goblins, and I love that, you know, like I love that like Batman concentration.
Berserk would be like the only series I would recommend just not bothering with the anime adaptations and just reading the manga.
Really?
Because any anime adaptation you're going to get into with Berserk is going to be incomplete. You're going to watch the 96 anime, it's going to have the Golden Age arc, and then that's it. You're going to watch the Golden Age arc movies, it's going to have the Golden Age arc again, and then that's it.
Huh.
And then you're going to watch the 2016 anime, which skips the Golden Age arc, but is also really bad. Oh. So just read the damn manga.
All right. Moving on to...
This one is more fantasy that sort of falls outside of the traditional battle shonen. This is where I put Fullmetal Alchemist, which is on the first one.
Okay, cool. I mean, Fullmetal Alchemist... It probably could have its own episode just talking about that, because we both love and we have differing opinions.
We have very different opinions.
And so I'm a fan of... I enjoy the original show. I think it does certain things better. But Brotherhood is definitive. It's better. It is strong. It is a complete package. I fucking love Brotherhood.
I'm of the opinion that this tends to be more of a modern thing, because a lot of people will watch Brotherhood without having watched 03.
Yeah.
And if the way Brotherhood was paced early on was a little better, I would be a little more comfortable with that. But whether you like it or not, those two shows like influence each other more than you think. FMA 03 was a game changer in its day, not only for like anime storytelling, but also for dubbing quality, stuff like that. Like, it won awards like in both countries.
Yeah.
Like, it was a big deal. And not having read the manga, I didn't really know the context for what the story was like and how much they had changed it, so I didn't care.
Definitely one that I read the manga for as a kid, and I knew the changes, and that's the reason why I didn't watch the original show in its entirety as a kid, is that I knew there was changes, and I was kind of like, I'm cool with this.
It's sort of the situation. What would you rather have? Would you rather have them padded out Dragon Ball style so they can have chapters to adapt, or would you rather just have them take what they have, take what they know, and then just kind of go in their own direction from here?
Yes. And I don't hate the original 03 show. I really don't. I think it's again, the beginning is extremely well paced and well done, and it has moments like the fusing of the girl and
the Nina and Alexander stuff.
That stuff is
that and like Hughes
is
just
so much
better in 03. There's so much more emotion. It really hits you to the point where when you'd watch Brotherhood first and then went back to like watch the rest of 03, you were just like, wow, this one's really hitting a lot harder with like these two moments. I'm like, yeah.
But so my argument to that is that those two moments are the only two moments where they actually, in the 03 show, exceed Brotherhood. Otherwise, Brotherhood comes in, kicks down a door, and fucking stomps on the rest of it.
My thing is, I'm not one or the other. I love them both equally. I say Fullmetal Alchemist, just the umbrella.
Okay.
I love them both equally for very different reasons. I prefer 03's, like, sense of devastation and war.
Yeah, true.
There's a lot more moral ambiguity in 03, like the fact that Mustang is responsible for like the death of Winry's parents, whereas it's Scar and Brotherhood. I like that idea in 03 because Mustang's a soldier. As much as you like him or not, he's done some shady stuff. So to make him be responsible for something that dire, and the fact that it's sort of like this conflict between those two characters, where she doesn't really know how to feel about him, but then she sort of resents him, but also respects him. That's interesting stuff. And I also, given the way Fullmetal Alchemist presents its world building, it always made sense to me, as weird as it is, that the ending went for like the real world parallel stuff with World War II. But there is a caveat in that Fullmetal Alchemist 03 ends on a relative cliffhanger, and you need to watch Conqueror of Shambhala to finish it. It's pretty much like the feature-length finale to that.
Which I don't mind that format, but it makes the series feel open-ended in a way, even though they do end it with the movie.
Yeah,
you know, like, it kind of feels like Firefly and Serenity, where you're like, wow, look at this giant universe, and then they're like, movie, done? Like, you know, like, and you're like, what? No, fuck,
sort of
what?
A different scenario, but that is pretty comparable.
Yeah. But Brotherhood's ending is so satisfying. It feels complete as fuck.
Brotherhood's ending feels more satisfying. And there's also a better sense of scale by the end.
They change up the homunculi a lot.
Yeah, and there's sort of a give and take with that. Because in some aspects, the homunculi are better in 03, and some they're better in Brotherhood. Like, Lust is much more of a developed character in 03 because she stays around for most of the runtime, whereas she's gone pretty early on in Brotherhood. So it's sort of like, but. That's why they're too different.
They are different. They are different
completely different identities that it's hard to be like, oh, one or the other, because I love both of them so much for such different reasons, and they connect to each other. Brotherhood, my biggest problem with Brotherhood is that it assumes that you've seen 03.
Yes.
So it tries to rush through the established material that 03 already covered to get to the new stuff. And in that sense, it's made Brotherhood age a little poorly because most people are just jumping into Brotherhood straight on, which wouldn't be a problem if it was paced properly. It gets to the point where, because they rush through subplots, they have to, like, sum it up later in, like, a sloppy flashback. Like the Yoki stuff. Just like, oh, yeah, that was a thing that we totally did at some point. You didn't watch 03, did you?
Shit. Okay, fair enough. I can see that argument. And that's why it's so an interesting show to bring up.
It's a pick and choose. They're very different shows. So as far as recommendations, I mean, you're going to watch whatever you want to watch. They're different enough that you can watch both.
Yeah.
And just form your own opinion.
I really did. I did it right away. I finished Brotherhood and went right to 03 and watched it all the way through. Like, it is one of those shows that, there's such a difference that you'll be like, okay, sure. You know, like, and I love the Elric brothers so much that I didn't care. You know, like, you're just like, sure, more.
And Brotherhood does, like, start to, as soon as it gets past the established material is when it hits its stride, not only for pacing issues, but also sort of the growing pains of animation, since that was like one of Bone's first digital shows, and it really shows.
It's true.
But they start to come into their own once the established material is done, and they start to hit their stride.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I feel that. And you were saying other fantasy shows? What's, because I feel like we could keep going on about Fullmetal Alchemist, but we should probably.
It's great.
It's great. It's basically great. It's one of the greats. It's one of those ones that the first time he does some alchemy, your brain just goes, well, that's the coolest fucking shit I've ever seen in my goddamn life. Let me watch so much more of that.
It's such like a creative take on a magic system. It's,
right.
With firm rules.
Yep.
So the next one is Made in Abyss.
So I have not finished this show, but I do I did like what I've seen so far.
Oh, it's so goddamn good. It's one of those shows where, so the premise is built around a giant crater-like hole in the ground that a city is built around, and explorers dive deep into the hole as the abyss for like treasures and stuff like that, and to discover new creatures.
Yeah.
But the further down you get, the more dangerous it gets and the more unknown. It's kind of like the depths of the ocean. Like there's still stuff that we don't know about from down there.
Exactly.
And this would-be explorer who lives in an orphanage actually finds like this robot boy who's been like abandoned by it, who's specifically from the abyss and doesn't remember what or who he is. And so the idea is that they're trying to explore down and go through a journey themselves to maybe find out about that. And what starts off as a pretty like a gorgeous, like charming, like fantasy series, like, oh look, this is gorgeous, look at these fantastic worlds, quickly descends into like a horror show.
Really?
Like it gets super dark because as things get dangerous, they don't pull their punches as to how dangerous things get.
Oh shit! I just haven't finished it. I basically only got like the beginning where it's all fantasy.
It pulls the rug from under you because you assume it's going to stick with that, because definitely the aesthetic, like all the characters are kind of like chibi and cute, especially the two leads, and then you're going to be traumatized later. And it's fantastic. This was one that
that's fantastic trauma.
Won anime of the year like it was like 2-3 years ago,
and for good reason.
Oh yeah, if it didn't win, I was going to be very mad. It's a great premise. It has a caveat in that it really needs another season because the manga's still going. We're still just kind of waiting. They've done like retelling movies, and I don't care about retelling movies. I just want another season. Yeah. But it's great for what it is, and the music is fantastic. It's actually not by a Japanese artist. They actually outsourced to a French composer named Kevin Penkin, who's starting to become really big in the industry now because he also did the OST for Shield Hero. Really? And he's also working on a Crunchyroll show right now called Tower of God.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird.
He's starting to become a big name. That music is fantastic.
We'll have to listen to it.
So the next one is, I actually mentioned this on my top 3 favorite series, is Mushi-Shi.
Yes, and this is one, another one I haven't seen yet, but you have told me time and time again to watch this one.
Oh, going back to Made in Abyss, it's it was only sub for a long time, but there's a dub for it now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And as far as where you can watch it, I think it's only on HIDIVE.
Really?
Yeah. So if you have a Verve account, you're good, but otherwise I don't think you can really watch it anymore. It used to be on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's still there.
Yeah. I'll have to check it
That's how I watched it, was on Amazon. The next one is Mushi-Shi. This is a supernatural series, sort of episodic. Mm-hmm. It's about this person who's called a Mushi-Shi, or a Mushi Master. He travels across like the country, and he searches for like supernatural beings, creatures called Mushi, which are sort of a mix between like spirits and ghosts, but they're also part of like nature, so they're not unlike insects. They're not yokai. Creatures.
They're different.
They're like living like spirit creatures or animals or bugs. So every episode tends to focus on a different thing. He's the recurring factor because he knows about them, he studied them, and they all have their different effects. There's an episode about like golden sake, where what they realize, he's like, oh, my father always talked about this golden sake. It was the most delicious thing he ever had, and I've been trying for years to replicate it. And then you find out it's just like, oh, what your father had wasn't sake, it was Mushi. He was literally drinking like the lifeblood of the world. And you've been trying to replicate that for years. Ugh. And there's also other weird like supernatural tales of like a woman who, because she was starving and pregnant, had to like drink from a pond which actually had like mushi in it, like contaminants. Okay. And it caused her body to like deteriorate, and her whole bloodstream, to as like an instinctual thing to take care of her child, became like breast milk. Weird. It's like this weird supernatural thing. Every episode tends to focus on a different thing, but it all ties back to like different types of mushi. Sometimes it's more spiritual, sometimes it's more like parasitic or like an infection or something. It's super interesting, but it's gorgeous, and it's the like most relaxing anime you could ever watch. You've mentioned how like Cowboy Bebop chills you out. Yeah, that's nothing compared to like Mushi-Shi. As soon as you get to the opening, you just kind of melt into your couch like
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get to Cowboy Bebop.
As far as watching language, you can watch the first season on Funimation. Otherwise, I think you can only watch it through Crunchyroll. So the caveat with the dub is only the first season is dubbed. And it's good, but if you're going to get to season 2, you're not going to get a dub.
Okay.
It will likely never be dubbed because the second season was licensed by a different company.
Really? Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
Yep, that's it for fantasy. You have anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. I brought up Goblin Slayer, and I probably should have brought it up during fantasy, but I do love that show for that type of stuff.
So the next one is Mecha. Now, I only have 2 recommendations on here, so this might be your time to shine.
This might be my time to shine. Yes, finally, my time to shine.
So the first recommendation I have on here is actually Eureka 7. It's spelled
which I have not seen yet.
Yeah, I've recommended it to you. It's actually on your queue still.
Yes, it is.
It's spelled like Eureka.
Yeah, which I thought was how you said it.
For some reason, they pronounce it Eureka.
Okay.
I watched the dub back in the day, so I'm wondering if that's just them keeping like the Japanese pronunciation.
Yeah.
Because they tend to have a problem with like R's. But I just say Eureka 7 because that's how they pronounce it. Because it's named after like a character in the show. So, and they say Eureka, so whatever. So it's a mecha series about wartime and stuff like that. Right. Main character's a typical boy who like gets embroidered into like this resistance.
Yes.
And a character that he tries to protect is this girl named Eureka, who seems to be like this alien-like creature who is trying to inhabit humanity and learn how to be human. Since I guess it's like this war between like these mechs and sort of like these abstract alien creatures, and that's where the sort of inner conflict comes from. So it has mecha stuff. It has giant robots who surf through the air. They have like air surfboards. It's really cool.
Okay.
And there's a cute little romance between a boy and a girl in it, which might have been the incentive for me. I don't know.
And I understand that. I
think it was like that and the fact that it's Bones, the same studio behind Fullmetal Alchemist, and they're my favorite like animation studio for like Japan. So that's probably the incentive.
Yeah. Understandable. So Mecha, so I haven't seen Eureka. So what was your other one before we go into my Mecha?
My other one was Evangelion.
Now, Evangelion is a classic. But I have not finished Evangelion, even though I'm such a huge Mecha fan. It is one of those things that I was waiting for the Netflix series, and now that it's on Netflix, I'm kind of been like, wait, where do I start with this Netflix series? Because they bumped out a bunch of different titles, and I'm just like, wait, hold on.
It's actually not that bad.
No.
Well, the thing about Evangelion is that it's a subversion of the mecha genre, so I was wondering if any like traditional ones would come up. You've tried for years to try to get more into Gundam.
So yes, I was gonna say Gundam. I'm a big I love Gundam. I have not seen the original series. I've watched a bunch of different Gundam. I've seen Cars Revenge. I know what happens in the original Gundam series. I've read the manga. Like, I know what happens. I just haven't seen the show because it's nowhere. But it's funny because my favorite Gundam is not the original Gundam. It's Eighth Squadron or something like that, or Eighth Platoon. I forget the name. It's something with Eighth.
I wasn't too. The only Gundam I've seen was Gundam Wing back in the day because it was like the one Toonami put on, and SD Gundam, which was like the CG chibi one because that was also a Toonami thing. That's about it.
There's several Gundam shows.
There's a million of them.
But there's a million of them. But Mobile Suit Gundam. Iron Blood is the most recent one. There's Unicorn. But the one that I watched is Eighth something. Why the fuck do they not? Oh, of course, this was not the right list. But basically, Gundam's kind of all over the place. And it's one of those things that we could probably have a whole episode, or there's several articles online which tell you where you should start.
Yeah, it's a tough one to know where to start because there's like stuff that's part of the main continuity, but then there's also a million spin-offs and stuff that just kind of do their own thing.
And you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's like trying to get into Gundam or trying to get into Fate, where I'm just like, no.
Yeah, you're just like, wait,
I'm good.
Hold on. You're like, that's a lot.
But as far as Evangelion is concerned, the reason I liked it is because I'm not really all that into like mecha as like the trope.
Yes.
So I like the fact that a show decided, it's like, what if we did the typical thing where these bunch of kids get to pilot these giant robots, and we actually explore, like, the problem with that.
Yeah.
And, like, the traumatic things that can do to a child to give them this kind of power.
Okay, so I finally found the name of the series. It's the 8th MS team. And it's just one of those, it's a great Gundam show because they always kind of are dealing with, like, why would you give these to kids, you know, like, and like, how powerful can a giant robot be? And this one's great because it is soldiers on the ground and they have, like, basic Gundams, and it's just very gritty. But what really sells it is, you were talking about, there's a love story, and like that draws in most people. There's like this love story going on across enemy lines, and it's definitely like one of those that you're just like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice story they got going on over there. It's just great Gundam.
Okay.
Like,
and because I forgot to say it, Eureka 7 Funimation. That's
Funimation.
Where you can watch it. Sub or dub, I don't care.
The other one I would say for if you want top-notch mecha is Gurren Lagann. I feel like Gurren Lagann is but I'm a big Trigger fan, so if you're not a Trigger fan,
just like,
stay away.
Which,
but
like me, I'm kind of wary on Trigger, so like Trigger and Mecha is just like, oh god, double. No.
But that's why I was there. I was like, Mecha and Trigger?
I totally know I'm in the minority when it comes to like Studio Trigger stuff. A bunch of my friends, especially like the ones that I chill with in my Discord, are just like, oh man, anytime a new Trigger show comes out, we're there. Like, they're the only people I knew who went to go see premiere in theaters.
Yeah. That's it's like I'm always there for it. Yeah, but Gurren Lagann it's just like, oh, did you want the craziness of Kill la Kill but in a mech anime? They're like, here it is. And you're like,
the funny thing is, like, Gurren Lagann was actually the thing that led to Studio Trigger, because that's actually not technically a Trigger show, but it is. It was made by Gainax.
Oh, okay.
But the team who worked on Gurren Lagann eventually split from Gainax and became Studio Trigger. And Gurren Lagann was the reason for that. So it's sort of like the proto-Trigger show.
Yeah.
The pioneer.
So, if we're going to talk mecha, I would say absolutely the 8th team for Gundam. It's just so down to earth, and then Gurren Lagann, which it's the opposite. Like,
it's also Gridman.
Yes. There is Gridman, which... Yeah, I would say it's a mecha. It's giant robots, so yeah, but not in the traditional sense.
Yeah,
but
it's more. It's based.
It's
on
more a superhero.
It's based on a tokusatsu show.
Yes,
which is, if you want to know what tokusatsu is, basically, have you ever seen Power Rangers?
Yes,
it's that.
Yes, and Gridman is basically that, and it's just great. It's definitely worth the watch.
It was like a recommendation that I'm just like, fine, I'll do it, because I had like made my friend watch another show. It tends to be a trade-off with me and my buddies that are just like, watch this. I don't really want to watch this. I'll watch this if you watch this. I'm like, fine. So it's just sort of like, I finished it, now do your part.
Do your part. Do your job.
Yeah. So yeah, Evangelion's a big one because it's
classic,
so dark, and just kind of peels the skin back on like that whole genre, and it's really good. As far as language recommendation, watch the sub. If you're gonna watch dub, only watch it on Netflix.
Yes,
because the original dub is garbage. Absolute garbage.
Which is great that we have it on Netflix with a nice new dub.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, you would have to go out of your way to find the old dub anyway, so why bother?
Yeah, exactly.
The new dub is really good. The cast is actually pretty spot on.
Nice.
But and as far as watching order, because you were confused as to how to watch it. So here's how it worked. They made the original series.
Okay.
And because of behind-the-scenes troubles, they couldn't really end it the way they wanted, which really shows, because that ending is fucking weird. That ending is so... It's something. So they decided, just like, okay, let's give this its own proper ending, but it's been a while, so let's recap it. So what they did is they recapped the series as, like, movies.
Okay.
With, like, a little bit of more supplemental material that they also added.
Okay.
So sort of like a director's cut type thing. And then they did End of Evangelion, which is like the feature-length intended ending.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not intended, but the one they came up with at the time. So really the way you just have to do it is just watch the original series, Evangelion, and then just jump right into End of Evangelion.
Okay,
that's
cool.
it.
That's what I thought.
Don't worry about the retellings.
That's what I thought. And I mean, you can't. It's funny because Mecha is confusing with its its stuff like that. I feel like the Evangelion's a confusing one to watch. But then we're talking about Gundam. Gundam is also extreme. There's literally 4 to 5 different universes in Gundam, and then, one Gundam is not in the same universe as another Gundam.
Exactly. Like, and the thing with Evangelion is that not only were they had the original retelling movies, which use like the same footage, but now they have like the reboot with like the modern movies.
Yeah, which I own that. I own 1.11.
There's like what 2 or 3 of them now. Like the final.
There's 2.2 and 3.3.
The final one after like years of like silence is actually about to come out.
Nice.
So it's going to be like yet another version of Evangelion's ending.
Just another one, which I really enjoyed the movie, the 1.11. I thought it was a great time.
I think I like looked for a recommendation, and I saw most people are just like, watch the original series. I'm like, all right, might as well.
It was something that somebody gave it to me for free on Blu-ray. It was super weird. They were like, "Would you like this?" And I was like, "Sure." You know, like I had never seen it, and then I watched it. It was like cool stuff.
My parents found out I watch anime. Here, take my stash.
Yeah, right. Like, please hide this. And I'm like, what? But moving away from mechas, because I could talk all day. But
speaking of talking all day, the next one I put was romantic dramas.
Romantic drama. Why would I talk? Okay, you would talk about romantic
I'm talking about me.
So, yeah, you'll probably talk more about this.
We had talked about this on the Guilty Pleasures episode.
Yes.
Or like the Comfort Food Entertainment one. And yeah, I like romantic anime, goddammit. It's like comfort food for me, and I just love taking the time on the weekend to just watch a 12-episode series about this stupid melodramatic high school bullshit. I don't know why. It's oddly cathartic. I don't know. I don't know what I am.
I don't blame you. There's some great ones.
Yeah, but the 2 recommendations tend to be like the easy recommendations for people are Clannad and Fruits Basket.
Okay. Now, what is the first one? I've heard of Fruit Basket.
Clannad is a high school romantic series about like just kids doing high school stuff. Main character's a boy, sort of like love triangle shenanigans, sort of. Yeah. It's actually based on a visual novel.
Huh.
So the whole point of that game is just like, oh, you're going through high school slice of life stuff. Who you gonna romance? But because it's a show, they're just like, there's only one answer for this. So it's like, it's sweet. It's really poignant. And eventually, once you get to like After Story, which is like the second season of it, starts to get pretty dark and sad and depressing. But still oddly cathartic.
And Fruit Basket's just a very cute.
Fruits Basket is about a girl who starts out homeless, and she sort of gets brought in by this Soma family. It was like this big family in that region of Japan, and there's a fantasy aspect in that they're actually have a Curse of the Zodiac thing going on, where when they're touched or like hugged by a member of the opposite sex, they actually turn into a specific animal from the zodiac that they represent.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So it's all about just her kind of coming into like this family that's sort of torn and split apart and bringing them all together. It's a classic. It's adorable.
It's adorable.
There's the original anime, which came out back in like, I think it was like early 2000s. And that one's pretty good, but you can go into that if you want, but it is sort of incomplete. It was eventually canceled, and it caught up to a certain point on the manga, and they took a lot of liberties. So it doesn't really end on a very satisfying note. But now the remake is out with the first season, which, unlike Brotherhood, doesn't try to rush through the established material. Yeah. Actually takes its time. The whole first season is basically everything that the original covered, but not trying to rush through it. Huh. And now second season will be on where like the manga left off.
Oh, nice. For this genre, I only have one recommendation, and it's the one that was recommended to me as a like, oh great, like this is a great place to start if you're going to watch romance anime. Ouran High School Host Club.
Yeah, I've never seen Ouran. That's a big like fan favorite. That's one that I know a lot of people grew up with.
So I mean, I always try to get to my wife to watch anime. Ouran's Host Club is the only one where she was like really like, oh yeah, okay, and sat down and watched like most of it with me. You know, like it is a funny, ridiculous show. It's just lighthearted and
it's
nice.
One that's like been on my radar for a long time. Like I'm not against watching it.
Yeah,
but I just never, it kind of missed me.
It is definitely a high school girl type of show that they would watch, but it is also great, you know, like it's really fun.
But it's funny and it warms my damn heart, which I need.
I need it.
But those are kind of the two biggest ones.
Okay.
There's a modern one that's still ongoing. The second season's actually coming out in a couple days. It's Kaguya-sama, Love is War.
Yes, which you've told me several times.
Yeah,
is great.
It's really funny. Because it's just like, what if both the characters never wanted to admit that they like each other, and they treat it like 4D chess? Where they're just like, if I can get him to admit it, but what if I can get her to admit it first?
I hear it's like Death Note, but with love.
But with love. It's basically that. That sort of like mental brain power of just like mind games with each other. It's just like, what if I get you to admit it? But what if I get you to admit it? That's why the subtitle is Love is War. Even the opening has a joke where they're just like, they're looking lovey-dovey at each other, but one of them's holding a knife behind them and the other one's holding a gun. Just like,
jeez.
It's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. And so is that it for romantic anime topics?
Yeah, those are the big ones.
So?
I think those are good like starters for people. I don't want to give you like a whole list of those because believe me, I could go on. The next one up is sci-fi that's not mecha.
That's not Mecha.
That's not Mecha.
That's not Mecha.
Because I feel like
you put
Mecha's
Space
good.
Dandy in there?
Space Dandy, yeah.
Yeah,
Space Dandy was actually on here, but it's alphabetical, so the first one that I had was Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop. So this is, everybody who loves anime is watching this right now is going to be mad at me again, as always. I am not a big Cowboy Bebop fan, strictly because I can't finish the show. Every time I watch it, I fall asleep. I am not against the show. It is just so relaxing and nice to watch that every time I'm just like, in like 10 minutes in, there's only 20 minutes in an episode, and every time I fall asleep. Like, and it's just, I feel like it's because the soundtrack is so great and everything just blends, and it just feels like it all falls into place so well, and that's great. But it also gives me this weird like comfort feeling, and then I'm like,
maybe you gotta pick like a certain time to watch it, like in the middle of the day or something where you know you're not gonna nap.
It won't work. I'll just fall asleep. I'll just fall asleep again. It is a great, like, what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of it. I think I've seen up to 6 episodes. I just, every time I fall asleep. Like, every time. Doesn't matter. And I try. It just...
I mean, at least you're not falling asleep because you're bored. It's just like, man, it's a huge vibe check.
Yeah, it is. It's
just
like, I'm vibing.
Check.
I'm just like, I'm vibing.
Cowboy Bebop is a great series because it's episodic. It tends to focus on different things, space adventures. But what people love about Cowboy Bebop is not only the soundtrack for it, but just the genre blending it does. Sometimes it's straight sci-fi. Sometimes it's more like a Western. I mean, there's a whole blaxploitation style episode. Like, this show is sort of everything. Shinichiro Watanabe, the director of it, who also directed Space Dandy, has said that, like, the idea behind Bebop is to, like, Bebop will be its own genre in and of itself because Bebop is everything.
Yes. And you will feel that watching it. You're like, it is a lot of things. Like, it is masterful, though. Like, I will say that. It is masterful. Like, I'm not going to say it's not. Like, it is. And that's the reason why I jumped right into Space Dandy afterward, because it's the same guy, you know, directing it.
If someone had
feel.
I didn't know that it was Watanabe who directed it. You had, for the longest time, recommended Space Dandy to me. You had got into it before me. If someone had told me Watanabe had directed it, I would have watched it as soon as the show began.
And it's Space Dandy is lighthearted sci-fi fun instead of Cowboy Bebop's very serious fun. You know, like, this is very much like, let it loose.
Yeah, it's a comedy show, and it's one that's like very experimental and wild, especially in its second season.
It's kind of like an anime Rick and Morty, but no one's mean. Like, you know, like in a way, like, it's more like if Johnny Bravo was in space, but that's a weird way to explain it.
You're not wrong, though.
I'm not wrong. I'm just saying it's a weird way to describe it.
But it's fun, and it just goes in some crazy directions. Each episode is kind of its own self-contained thing.
True. You're just kind of like,
especially
what?
Season 2. Season 2 is wild because that's when they started to get really experimental.
Yeah.
They would bring in different styles of animation and stuff like that.
I feel like they start getting weird at the end of season 1, and they were like, maybe we should get weirder. And you're like, wait, what?
And then the weirdest thing is that it probably takes place in the same universe as Cowboy Bebop. Because in all of Watanabe's sci-fi shows, the one concurrent thing is like references and the currency. Every currency is always Wulongs. It's always Wulongs. That's in Cowboy Bebop, that's in Space Dandy, and that's in Carol and Tuesday.
Really?
So it's just like, huh.
You're like, all the same universe?
Yeah, I mean, Space Dandy, I guess if it was like further into the future would make sense. Carol and Tuesday seems like it would fit pretty well in the same universe as Bebop. Yeah. But it would definitely, especially since Mars is also a big thing in Bebop, and that's where all of Carol and Tuesday takes place. Like, Mars was the big outpost after Earth was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, what's some other space?
Legend of the Galactic Heroes. This is a pretty recent one for me. I watched it a couple years ago now. I think it might have been like maybe a year or two ago now.
Yeah.
It's so goddamn good. So it's a sci-fi show if you're more of a fan of like Star Trek style sci-fi. If you want to delve more into like politics and philosophy and stuff like that, that's a great show to do it. You have to think of it on the style of like a Star Trek show with like Game of Thrones style politics, more so than you would get in a traditional like mecha. Okay. So there's no mechs at all. It's strictly like space combat and just seedy political like maneuvers. It's like the West Wing in space.
Interesting.
It's super detailed. It's like this big, long epic. It's a great watch. I can understand why it was like a big classic for people back in the day, especially considering it was an OVA and it was really hard to get your hands on it. But now the big deal, that was one of HIDIVE's biggest pushes when they first became a thing, is that they had it.
Nice.
And that's how I watched it, because I'm bumming off a friend's Verve. Like I bum off of everything else.
And I mean, it's definitely one of those ones I definitely want to get into at some point.
So good.
It seems great. Like,
it's like if you kind of feel like the hole that you feel like you've been missing with like no Star Trek, because even if you have Discovery, that's not really traditional Trek. Yeah, it's like post Abrams Trek. It's kind of a completely different thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's sort of a different beast. Yeah. So if you want more like really political, seedy sci-fi with that sort of like Game of Thrones level politics, which says a lot for me because I actually usually hate the comparison. It's just like Game of Thrones, but it's an appropriate comparison here.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out. And you're saying the original, not the remake, right?
I watched the remake first because I had no context for the original. I watched the first season of it when it was out. I liked it fine. Okay. I didn't think it was great. I liked it fine. Everyone said that the original was so much better. And then I decided to just like, man, people said like the original is like a masterpiece. Let me give it a shot. Yeah. And then I started watching the original, got hooked on the original, and now I'm just like, yeah, this is way better.
Okay, cool. Makes sense. Now what else? What do we else got on this list?
For sci-fi, non-mecha sci-fi, that was it. The next one was going to be Space Dandy, and we already covered that.
All right, there we go. I feel like sci-fi is a great...
There's another one that's sci-fi, but I think it goes more towards thriller, so I put it in thriller instead. Okay. And that's the thing, it tends to like cross-pollinate, you know? Yeah. So the next one is thriller. We had already talked about Death Note. Okay. We didn't really go into the premise for people who might not be familiar. We had talked about like how it's executed, but the basic premise is a notebook is dropped into the human world from the Shinigami realm, which is basically a death god. Yeah. It's like a Japanese sort of cultural thing. And the gimmick is that if you write someone's name in the notebook and you have their face and like full name in mind, you can write how they die. If you write their name down, they die of a heart attack. Yeah.
Or they die in any way you write down.
If you don't write any context for it, they die of a heart attack automatically. Otherwise, you can write how they die.
And it's
within certain boundaries.
The first couple episodes, you just seem like that's gonna carry the show, is being like, oh wow, he's got a death notebook, and let's see what powers he gets from that.
And the idea is that this kid sort of wants to rewrite the world because he's like, there's so much injustice in the world. What if I were to just purge everyone? It's like the Thanos thing.
Yeah, and then what really, when the show really takes off, because it is great from the beginning, but when it really takes off is when L steps in. L is a mysterious international detective who basically, like you said earlier, plays 4D chess with Light, our main character, to try to catch him and find out who he is and how this all
and
works.
And a good chunk, especially in the first half, is just them sort of maneuvering around each other. Am I going to find out, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all just this huge mind game, and that's really the big fun of it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a good show, and it's a good starter. I will say the second half isn't as strong.
No, you know, I mean, yeah, sort of.
Without getting into the spoilers, like Nier, not a big fan of.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
all right, I see that. I enjoy the
still
show
think it's
in total.
I think it's a good show from beginning to end, but it doesn't surprise me that it ended as early as it did because it was a big hit. Yeah, I just feel like the writer didn't really know where to go.
Yeah,
after the L stuff was done.
Yeah,
and that's how I feel like the second half goes, because I feel like with Death Note as a concept, there's potential for way more directions we can go with it.
Yeah, but yeah, I also like the idea of closing it off.
That's true.
Like, I like it just being like, and done.
Better to
quit when you're ahead.
Quit when you're ahead rather than overstay your welcome, you know?
Yeah, like the Netflix movie.
So as far as
don't watch the Netflix live action. Don't watch any. Well, the live action Japanese movies, good. Okay, they're all right. But the Netflix one, stay away.
Unless you want a good laugh.
Yeah.
The only good thing about I didn't mind the idea of the movie trying to be more of like a trashy, like slasher movie type thing, because Death Note is such a good concept that you can kind of like work around it and kind of do your own thing without having to be slavish to the material. You could literally just have said, this is a completely different character. You could have soft rebooted it. Just like, this is a completely different character, but all that stuff with like Light Yagami already happened. But that was in Japan. This is a different thing.
Exactly.
You could have done it that way.
And that's the way we think about it anyways, is we're like, it's another
really the best
story.
Thing about that was like Willem Dafoe is really...
Oh my God, he's so good. I love William Dafoe most of the time, and he's so good as Ryuk. Like, you're like perfect.
But going back to like Cowboy Bebop and Legend of Galactic Heroes, as far as recommendations for Bebop, dub only.
Dub only?
Dub is better. And then for Legend of Galactic Heroes, it's only available in sub.
Oh, all right.
And then that's Funimation for Bebop and HIDIVE/Verve for Legend of Galactic Heroes.
Okay.
Death Note, it's on Funimation.
Yep.
You can watch it sub or dub. They're both good.
It's not on Netflix. You'd think they would own the Netflix rights, you know, like, because they got the movie.
I don't know, because it's a weird one. That's actually something I should have brought up with Fullmetal Alchemist, is that 03 is only available on Netflix.
Really?
Brotherhood is on Funimation.
Oh,
that was a whole, like, rights thing. It actually, Brotherhood actually wasn't on Funimation for the longest time. They just got the distribution rights to it back.
And if you're just getting into anime, basically stay away from any of the Netflix anime live action adaptions. If we had, I don't know if we had to say that, but we will say that so you know, stay away from them. They're all bad.
Let's just say the track record for live action anime adaptations is about as good as video game adaptations.
Yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
It's true. Basically the same percentage of good ones. None of
as
them.
in none. But going back to Thriller, so Death Note's available. Funimation, sub or dub is good. The next one, unfortunately, isn't available anywhere legally because it's been out of print for years, is Monster. This is sort of, this is a class. This is like a cult classic with me growing up and like my friends.
Okay.
And when you know someone who's seen it, they'll tell you how good it is, like either manga or anime-wise. But part of the reason people don't hear about it now is because it's like hard to get now. Like the DVDs are out of print. It's not available on any like legal streaming site. Okay. So it's kind of tough to find. It's a psychological thriller about a doctor who decides to save the life of a child, and that child eventually becomes a murderer. And because he feels responsible for it, because he actually had the choice to save this kid or someone else, and he actually made the wrong decision by saving the kid, and the kid has turned out to be like
a murderer.
It's all about like him sort of redeeming himself for that and hunting down that killer. Super good.
All right, sounds good to me.
Sub and dub are solid, especially for the time, but the only way you're going to be able to watch it is if you hit them illegal sites. Like, I'm a big proponent, for the most part, of supporting the official release, but when they make it so damn hard, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
That's what I did for Evangelion. I finally watched it because I was kind of waiting for it to go somewhere, and then the moment I watched it, then they announced that it was coming to Netflix.
Right, yeah, great.
And plus, it was a few months out. I'm just like, I already have the episodes. I'll just watch them.
So, does that bring us into movies? or is there another thriller you want to bring up?
There's one more thriller.
One more thriller.
Movies.
Okay.
This one is Terror in Resonance.
Huh.
It's from the same director as Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo,
Really?
Space Dandy, Carol and Tuesday.
Okay.
This one is about a terrorist attack. And, like, it's sort of an alternative history. Like, what if there was a huge terrorist attack, like, maybe on the same par of, like, 9/11, but for Japan?
Huh.
And it's about, like, these group of kids who sort of are trying to track down the terrorists because they're, like, cyber terrorists.
Okay.
For it.
Huh.
And, like, the thrillings that happen from there.
Okay.
It's really
Sounds
good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm down. All right. Where's that? Where can I see those?
Terror
things?
in Resonance is on Funimation.
Cool. All right.
I've only watched its sub. I don't know if the dub's any good.
All right.
But Watanabe's shows tend to have pretty good track records with his dub.
Dubs.
I had my reservations with the Carol and Tuesday dub in a lot of places, but I still watched it from beginning to end in dub, so
Okay.
good enough.
All right. I've only watched the dub of that, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, that's it for Throw. We're on to movies.
Movies, our last little bit here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's important to talk about anime movies and to not just talk about Miyazaki films.
Yes.
Like, we're going to say, watch Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. We'll just say that. We won't even go any further because you probably could watch a whole episode about why you should watch Mononoke
Here's the thing, like,
or Spirited Away or something else.
It's not that I dislike Miyazaki as a filmmaker.
I love Miyazaki
but
as a
he
filmmaker.
He
I love
tends
it.
to be the only anime-like filmmaker that comes up, and that's mostly because he just happened to be the one that was localized over here and had, like, the big American push. Because his films initially were distributed by Miramax, and they were treated like big deals, and then Disney later got it.
Yep.
So it didn't have, like, the same reverence with other films and other filmmakers because they didn't get as big a push in the West, and things have sort of changed now. So as much as I like Miyazaki, it's like there are other filmmakers out there.
And they are great. Like, almost every one of his movies. You've seen everyone?
I've seen every single one except Porco Rosso.
Okay, and I've seen most. I'm still missing a few. But I really do love Miyazaki. We're not putting him down. We're just saying move on because we want to talk about more useful information to you.
Yeah.
But our recommendation for Miyazaki films is Princess Mononoke. Spirited Away is usually people's first starting one, and it is great, but Princess Mononoke is better.
Yeah.
It's more meditative.
My two favorites are Princess Mononoke and The Wind Rises.
Yes.
The Wind Rises is like an autobiographical type film.
I'm a Ponyo fan, but that's because Ponyo's fucking cute.
Yeah,
and
it's adorable.
And that's how it gets me, is Ponyo's fucking cute. So it's like...
But Princess Mononoke is sort of like man versus nature type
Princess
story.
Mononoke is
honest,
top tier for me. It's top.
Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind was kind of a rough draft for Princess Mononoke, if I'm being honest.
Yes,
because they
but
have
more
these,
sci-fi
They
roots,
have the
more
same,
sci-fi.
They have like almost the exact same thematic framework, and there's more sci-fi versus fantasy, but I feel like Mononoke is a much more polished version of that same sort of framework.
Exactly.
So people have made that joke before that like Nausicaa is just a rough draft for Mononoke.
and Mononoke is just fantastic. If you haven't
The
seen
Wind
it,
Rises
please.
is an autobiographical film, not entirely accurate, but whatever.
Yeah.
About a person whose dream is to just build planes. And then the point is he can do what he loves as his passion, but the point is he's going to be designing planes for the military.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that thing of just like, what do you give up for
Your dream.
your art and your dreams? And what are the consequences of that?
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's super well done. And plus what I like about The Wind Rises is that it's one of his more grounded films. Like, there's not really much of a fantastical element to it like the others. Yeah.
All right, so the other movies. So
Next one is
not Miyazaki.
Not Miyazaki. The next one is Redline.
Redline. So I haven't seen Redline.
Redline is nuts. You would love it.
Yeah?
It's nuts. It's basically just a big like space movie where the whole movie's just about racing.
All right.
But it's Madhouse, so we're talking the same studio who did One Punch Man.
Yeah.
So we're talking like that anime levels of crazy for like a giant anime race.
Ooh.
And it gets ridiculous, and it's a blast, and it's super well animated. It was Madhouse's baby. I think they spent maybe 5 to 7 years working on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's a big one.
Big one. I mean, it sounds good to me.
I don't know where you can watch it. I think
I've seen it places.
Yeah, I can't remember where it is.
Yeah.
I'd have to find out.
Now, are you going to bring up Your Name next, or
further down because it's
further
all
down? It's all alphabetical.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
it's
ahead.
Fine.
Go ahead.
The next one is actually A Silent Voice.
Oh,
this is the film that I say is better than Your Name.
Really?
They came out the same year. Your Name was the much bigger.
And this
movie.
one's on Netflix right now, I believe. Yes. Yeah, Silent Voice is on Netflix, but Your Name is not. So.
Mm-hmm. So Your Name was the bigger movie because it appealed to a broader audience, and it was the one that got the bigger push in the West. A Silent Voice had a much more like limited release over here.
And I love your name.
Yeah,
we'll talk.
Too.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Movies.
But Silent Voice. So what?
So A Silent Voice is about these group of kids growing up together, like through school.
Uh-huh.
The main character befriends a deaf girl that he had actually bullied when he was younger. And the whole point is that he sort of made her life miserable. Like he picked on her. He like started this whole thing where like people would like steal her hearing aids and like throw them away and stuff like that. So like years later, he starts to like feel guilt for that. And the point is, like, he was sort of peer pressured into doing it because it was what all the other kids were doing. But then he took all of the blame for it. And then he was sort of ostracized by the other students because, of course, they're not going to take any blame for it. They're just going to find a scapegoat. To the point where not only was it the students, but even the teachers, like, turned him into a scapegoat, even though the teachers were partially responsible because they knew what was happening but were just negligent about it. So years later, he's sort of, like, guilt-ridden and depressed and tries to kill himself. Doesn't go through with it, but then he decides, what if I could maybe do something to make up for what I've done? And so he tries to have, like, a friendship with the deaf girl that he had like bullied before, and they actually become like really good friends, but there's also that guilt of just like, do I even deserve her friendship after what I've done? It's a whole thing.
Interesting.
Super good movie, really touching. Interesting thing about the dub, I haven't seen the dub yet. I do want to because I heard it's really well done. I watched it sub because the dub wasn't available at the time. Interesting thing about the dub is that they actually got a deaf actress to play the deaf character in the
That's
dub.
wild.
Yeah,
that's
cool. Really cool.
I love that stuff. Now,
there's one more before Your Name.
Okay.
But if you have another recommendation,
no, go ahead. It's funny because I bring up lists of anime movies, and it's like it just makes me sad because I realize how many I've not seen. You know, like it's one of those things. So the only one that I would say that, and I don't know why it wasn't at the top of your list here, is Akira.
Akira is definitely one of those like classics, but
it's a classic,
and it's
a fucking classic. Yeah. But it's a hard one to get into as a start anime.
That's why I decided not to include it.
So most people will say Akira is a great starting anime, but you're right. It is not exactly a good one to start on because when I was just starting to watch anime and I watched Akira, I didn't like it. I like literally watched it and was like, I don't see what's so great. But I went back literally this year and watched it again. I love that movie. It's so fucking good. And I don't know what was hitting me before, but really I think it's just because I wasn't used to the genre.
I think it's a good in from a different time.
Yeah.
It was a good in for back when anime was more of a counterculture.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it wouldn't be a good thing to start off with, but it is definitely a must when you're more comfortable with the genre.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the film. I've been meaning to read the manga for a long time because the manga covers a lot more.
Yeah.
From what I hear, the movie only covers like maybe like a quarter of what the manga does. But the author of the manga was involved with the movie, so he found a way to make it just like one compact story without having to go into the other stuff. But from what I hear, the manga fleshes out so much more and goes into much deeper territory.
I'll have to check it out.
It's been on like my to read list for a while. I just haven't gotten to.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those movies that you want to watch to understand its cultural relevance.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and that's the main reason why I would say to watch Akira, is to understand why it's everywhere. It's the same reason why you should watch Citizen Kane or The Godfather, is to understand what the fuck is being referenced all the time. But again, you're right. It is not one to be like, hey, you never seen an anime before? Here, watch Akira. You know, it would be like, what the fuck am I witnessing here? You know, like, but it is fantastic. Yeah. So that was my throw in on the list. Other than my other one favorite, and I'm not saying this movie's good, I'm just saying it's my one of my favorite anime movies of all time is Steam Boy. I don't know why.
Steam Boy, wow, that takes me back.
I don't know why. It was no, I do know why. It was the only anime movie I had. One of the only movies I had on my PSP. It was weirdly a UMD, and I had it, and I remember watching it and just being like, holy shit! You know, like, just all the steampunk aesthetic and the giant epic fights made me so happy. It is not a good movie. It's not. It's so all over the place, but it is fun.
I honestly don't remember enough about it to even like say whether it's good or not. I don't really remember much for it. The only thing I really remember was that it used to be heavily advertised back when it was coming out, so it doesn't surprise me that you got your hands on it.
Yeah, it's funny.
Because it did kind of get a big push.
Yeah, really weird push. Like I said, I got it on PSP, you know? Like it's like my PSP had such a weird collection. It was like Silent Hill, like and God of War and Steam Boy, you know, you're like, what is this collection?
I had like Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, Kingdom Hearts.
Yep, Crisis Core. I played the
Family Guy, the Stewie Griffin movie.
Yeah, right. You're like, what? All right. But if I'm gonna talk about anime that started me, I would have to talk about Steam Boy because it definitely was one of my. I'm a big steampunk fan, so this was. If you're a big steampunk fan, you'll love Steam Boy, even though it's just a very predictable plot, but it's fun.
It's weird that steampunk has never really had like its Blade Runner.
Yeah,
as like an aesthetic thing. The closest thing is like games that tend to meet you more like BioShock.
It's hard to do it in movies. I feel like it really is. There's some good steampunk movies, but it doesn't mean that it takes it off. You know, and maybe that'll come someday.
Interesting thing, yeah.
But
next up is Tokyo Godfathers.
Another one I have not seen, but I feel guilty for not seeing.
This is a Christmas movie for one. It's about like these group of just regular average Joes. A couple of them are homeless. They find a baby who's lost on like Christmas Eve.
Okay.
In like the middle of a park. And they're trying to like hunt throughout the entire city, throughout the entire night on Christmas Eve, trying to bring this baby back to her parents. They don't know like how she got lost or what happened, but the entire movie is about them trying to like bring the baby back.
Cool. Seems good.
Super grounded, really good. It's by I think his name is Satoshi Kon. He also did Paranoia Agent, which is also one I forgot to add for Thriller. That's a trippy one. That one is a big deal because Funimation just got it.
Oh, nice.
Because you would only be able to watch it on Adult Swim otherwise, and I actually just rewatched it like these past like few weeks.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Good.
It's good. It holds up.
Nice. So yeah, Tokyo Godfather, you're saying is the best anime Christmas movie, but also it's one of the best anime movies.
Can't really think of much anime Christmas movies, to be fair.
Exactly. But you gotta have that genre.
But yeah, it's only available in sub for now, but there's actually going to be a limited theatrical release, though who knows where that's going with like everything that's going on. But the intent was theatrical release over here for the first time and with a newly produced dub for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's only available sub.
May have to watch that.
But hopefully that'll lead to a home release where you can just like get your hands on it that way.
With everything being dropped on services right now.
So now it's Your Name.
Your Name. So I definitely, it's the one. Your Name is the anime movie that was nominated for an Oscar. That's why it's important. If we're gonna talk like other than Miyazaki films, they usually do not get nominated for Oscars, and that's why it was important. I feel like Your Name's kind of important. Is it finally broke through the, like, we only let Miyazaki in here, everyone else can fuck out. Yeah. You know, like, it's Pixar and Miyazaki, and that's it. Everyone else get the fuck out of here. and they finally did, and sure, it didn't win, but Your Name really shows why these type of movies can be in the Oscars, you know? Like,
it's a great movie. It's, the premise is sort of a body swap story.
Yes.
Where he's like a boy, like a city boy in Tokyo, and sort of like a country girl wake up in each other's bodies, and then they forget what they've done like the previous days for the most part, and so they find a way to communicate with each other and sort of like influence each other's lives, and they start to make each other better.
Yeah.
And then the plot sort of comes to a head when you start to realize that there's also sort of a time differential between the two of them. Yeah,
you assume the entire movie, and I guess that's kind of spoilers, but like you assume the entire movie that
that's
same timeline.
That's as far as it goes, that there's like a time differential issue, and that's where the big conflict starts to come in.
But it's It's great. It's one of those touching movies that like you find yourself crying at the end and you're like, oh no. Like and it's just nice. And it really is a great, it's one of those like great films. And
I'm not sure this is anywhere on like streaming services. Most of these movies usually aren't. Streaming services aren't big on like the movies specifically. As far as language, I would recommend you watch the sub. I'm not huge on the dub. It's not terrible, but I would lean more towards the sub, which is what I did for you.
All right. It's good though. Damn good though.
Oh yeah.
Damn good though. So is that all? Is that all the recommendations?
One more because Y and let's see. Actually, I got my alphabet wrong. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
I went to school. The last one for me is Wolf Children.
Okay.
This is from one of my favorite Japanese filmmakers. He's Mamoru Hosoda. If anyone listening to this is a Digimon fan, he directed the first two. Digimon Our War Game and the Adventure 02 one, which got combined together into just Digimon the movie for the American release. So like that sort of style. He also has done Summer Wars. He's done this, Wolf Children. He has Mirai, which we watched a little bit of.
I own that one.
We had started that,
I own that one. I like that one a lot.
And if I had to pick his best film, I'd probably say it's Wolf Children.
Okay.
So this one is about a woman who falls in love with someone. They love each other. Yeah. They start to have a kid. She actually finds out that he's like a werewolf. Like he's part wolf, so he's
classic
like,
anime twist.
Like a beast. Yeah. And while he's actually out in the rain, he actually gets shot and dies. So she's just left as a single mom with her two children,
who are werewolves,
who are like part wolf. And so it's really just a really touching, sad, you will want to call your mom afterwards, this child about like being a mom, but they also happen to be wolves and stuff like that, so that just makes things harder. Yeah. She has to like move out in the country and isolate herself, and she doesn't really know what to say to her kids and how they deal with this growing up, and she's not part of that species, and their father's not there to help them, so touching.
Oh man.
You will cry.
You will cry.
I've only watched it sub. I've heard the dub is great. Funimation did it.
Yeah.
And I do really want to watch the dub because the mom is actually voiced by one of my favorite English voice actresses in the dub, and I really want to watch it because of that reason.
All right. I definitely. So it's on Funimation, you said?
It should be, yeah.
Okay, I'll check it out because I definitely want to see that. As you can see here, there's some gaps I do not have in this. I watch plenty of anime, but there's tons of gaps, and that's what's great about. I hope you find it the same in this episode. Is there's plenty of good recommendations here to start with, and you can find one that works for you and hopefully run with it because that's kind of how anime happens. Just realize it's just another genre. It's just another
it's like
thing.
a medium. Like it's sort of a different thing. Like anime as a genre is really just about like the execution of it. You can't really say the style because a bunch of different anime have different like animation styles.
Yes.
Just sort of a different flavor.
Yes. And I hope that you do because this is one of the great joys in my life. That sounds so stupid, but like anime went from something that, like, even in high school, I made fun of kids for watching anime, you know? Like, it was just like, why would you watch that?
Oh, believe me, anime fans made fun of themselves.
Yes.
That's why, like, weeaboo as, like, a derogatory term lasted, like, a month before the anime communities just, like, took it in. Just like, no, we own that.
We are weebs now. Like, and that's it, is that you will go from being, like, this is weird to being like full on, like, I am weeb. May I buy sculpture? You know, like, it will happen. And it's funny because everybody else will have different journeys. And that's why we give so many recommendations.
Yeah.
There's a great place to start for everybody.
Yeah. In the same way that like there's a comic book out there for everyone, which I feel like we could also do another episode just about that specifically, how to get into comics. Yeah. There's one out there for everyone.
Seriously.
It's not just one thing.
And, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I want to thank you guys for listening, and please check out some of these shows. Like, these are great shows, and you have all this time during this quarantine.
We'll probably just put the list in the description just so it makes it easier so you can know where to find it.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you guys for tuning in. Please check out articles on galaxyandgeek.com where we post this podcast. There's plenty of things. Deshaun has a whole Dragon Ball Z movie film breakdown on there.
Yeah, back when Dragon Ball Super Broly was coming out, I did a retrospective about all the films and movies and TV specials.
And we have tons of other anime content on the site, so please check it out there. Please like, subscribe, tweet at us. Like, please, we want to talk about this stuff. If we missed some anime you think would be a great recommendation, please let us know. And if you think, Frank, I heard your animes here, let me tell you a good animes, I will absolutely listen to you. I am so open to anime at the moment, and I will just listen. I'll watch whatever. So I like at the moment, please give me your recommendations. I would love it. And thank you guys, and I hope you have a great week.
Yep. See you next time.
Adios.